The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
Valley, hooey, Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid, if she dances with or without a plan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good, where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Damn You Hollywood. I'm Alexis Hejna, and here he is. We warned him that the hours were bad and the pay was worse, and yet somehow he's still here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robert Winfree.
Yeah, they are, and yeah, it is. Tonight, everybody, we are short one Mark Radulich. Mark originally bowed out of this review because Jason Teasley was supposed to be joining us. Jason is under the weather, so we wish him the best in his recovery. And we'll be rolling with the three of us here tonight. So that is myself, Alexis Hejna, who you heard introduce me. And back again joining us is Mr. Dorian Price. Dorian, how you doing?
Not too bad. How y'all?
Doing well.
I've been worse. So, on the agenda this evening...
You haven't been stuck inside a Fazbear suit yet. So, I mean, from a certain point of view.
Indeed. But there were days when I was working at Kmart when I would have taken the suit. Show up at 4 a.m. Yeah, you can bite me.
I was going to say, I think we have all worked overnight shifts at least one place or another.
Yeah, once or twice.
I have actually worked overnight security for over 2 years, so this movie is very near and dear to my heart in that respect.
I remember when you worked that. I volunteered to bring you Thanksgiving dinner one night that you were working there because you weren't able to come out to join anyone for Thanksgiving.
No, it's a problem with being somewhat competent at your job and being promoted, and fuck your real life.
Yeah, there's a weird part in the bell curve where your work competence winds up making you more miserable before it starts paying off.
Right.
But speaking of competence, it's a terrible segue, but tonight we're talking about the somewhat surprise hit, I guess, Five Nights at Freddy's, an adaptation that's been in development hell for a few years. But
didn't stop them from getting a couple of knockoffs released to the small screen.
One of which is a better movie than this.
We'll be talking about those.
We'll get to that. The compare and contrast portion of the review will come. But we're talking about Five Nights at Freddy's. And before we get into the film proper, because Mark wants something for TikTok, we're going to talk about all the Rule 34 iterations of Five Nights at Freddy's in the cast.
I thought we were talking about the games, not the porn.
As Robert mentioned,
it is fans out there. I was lied to. No,
Robert, you want to explain why we're talking? I mean, yes, we are talking the game, but you want to tell them what you told me before we started the show tonight?
Just as a general rule, like, for those unfamiliar with internet culture,
there's a bunch of aren't, what's wrong with you?
Indeed, but there's a list of rules for the internet, and most famously is Rule 34.
If it exists, there's porn of it.
Indeed. And I don't consume pornography, but I know enough people that get enough into the weird stuff that when Five Nights at Freddy's started hitting, I was told that there's a lot of very weird stuff about this particular franchise. And then naturally some YouTuber that I kind of half follow decided to do a quasi documentary on just how much there is. For those unaware of the following fact, I believe Five Nights at Freddy's, if you go to and I don't advise you do this in public, feel free to take my word for this if you don't want to fact check me. But if you go to any of the Rule 34 websites that will filter by keywords, this is among the most popular franchise entries by just raw number of entries. I think it beat out Sonic recently.
Oh dear God!
That's.
I just noticed that we had 4 viewers, and it's just quickly dropped to 2.
Hi, Caroline. That's
We're scared everyone off.
Now that we've scared everybody off with that,
no, I'm pretty sure that the people that I know are like, you know what, we've heard worse. We're theater people. Bring it.
And mostly I wanted to bring this up because now Mark has to try and figure out ways to cut around this, and that amuses me to no end. But we wanted to talk a little bit about the rise of this franchise, is kind of what it became. That tracks. So this was a smaller, kind of indie developed game that released, I believe you told me, 2014.
That was when the first one came out. Small little indie game from
Scott Cawthon.
Scott Cawthon, yes. Apparently he actually designed for some Christian themed video games. And one of them got ripped to shreds because they said that, I think it was a beaver that he designed.
The beaver looked like a creepy well, they didn't say as shit, but creepy as shit animatronic.
Which got the gears turning in his head.
Well, and it was one of 3 sort of failures in a row. They made money. He did what his prompts were as a creator and so forth. But he was starting to get frustrated, similar to the people who put Final Fantasy together, which is why Final Fantasy, for those of you who don't know, is called Final Fantasy. It was their Hail Mary attempt at creating a game.
Mm-hmm.
So Cawthon, he's like, well, you know what? If everything I do looks creepy, fuck it. Let's just go balls deep with your Rule 34 thing. Continuing. And that's how we got Five Nights at Freddy's. There had been several, and I'm sorry, I've either played or watched intensive playthroughs of all the games with the lore. I've read all the books. So I'm not trying to cut anyone off. Please step on me if somebody else has something to say. But yeah, it's the creation of it. They're actually already talking about doing a either a short film for the full release once the movie's out of theaters, or the sequel starts getting of the creation of Five Nights at Freddy's. And how Scott Cawthon, they're going to take liberties, of course, but, how Five Nights at Freddy's came to be.
Well, Five Nights at Freddy's I'm not a huge fan of just saying it's they need to see this was made. But no, the story of this game actually does deserve kind of its own little documentary, I think.
Well, yeah, because in my opinion, it's shocking that we never had something on the level of this before. Because I never personally got to have a birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese's. I'd been to Chuck E. Cheese for friends' birthdays. I thought they were awesome, the animatronics, but I had a lot of friends, especially some of my friends' younger siblings as well, that found them terrifying. Now, me being the freak, I'm like, these are my friends, these are my people. Fits out up there, it's awesome. Nightmare fuel. But I'm shocked that it was never. With the great designers of Silent Hill and Alan Wake and Resident Evil and etc., that nobody thought, what if we made Chuck E. Cheese scary as fuck and just answered the thing everyone had been thinking their entire life?
So every time I talk to somebody at one of my conventions about Five Nights at Freddy's, I have to bring up this little story here. And Dorian, I know I've told you this story. And that first time I was introduced to Five Nights at Freddy's, I didn't get a chance to start playing it, but I was watching a Let's Play of it. This game famously, it was a very small independent game, but it famously essentially got a second life due to YouTubers finding it, putting it on their channel, and it has grown into this giant media franchise now. This
is one of those, and I think the other one that was sort of contemporary with it that would fall into the same category is Undertale.
Oh yeah,
that was just again a smaller independent game that got a lot of traction via either Let's Plays or just general streaming on Twitch and YouTube. And
not as big, but definitely I'd say in the third spot. If FNAF is number 1, Undertale being number 2, Little Nightmares.
Yeah.
Oh,
Exploded.
definitely.
100%.
Again, thankfully, both and actually all 3 of them, I think a good chunk because of the YouTubers Markiplier and of course Jacksepticeye playing both of them and really getting into them.
So yeah, the Five Nights at Freddy's game was actually how I was introduced to Markiplier, because I was getting requests at conventions for people saying, it's like, hey, do you have Five Nights at Freddy stuff? I had never even heard of it. And I was like, is that some sort of Nightmare on Elm Street thing? And I called up a friend of mine. I was like, what the hell is Five Nights at Freddy's? And he's like, Google Markiplier, Five Nights at Freddy's, just watch. So one night I'm watching it, and I will confess that every time the animatronic jumped in, I jumped back a little and I yelped. I got into the jump scares. And my husband, Andre, comes downstairs. He's like, what the hell are you freaking out about? And I'm trying to explain this to him, but he's from Romania and he had never even heard of the animatronics at Chuck E. Cheese or Showbiz Pizza or anything like that. He just wasn't around here in the country, when that kind of a thing was popular. So I did a little search, found some photos, a couple of old videos people had uploaded to YouTube of their old family videos of, the birthday parties at those. And I'm showing it to him. And I'm explaining about it because, I spent so many birthday parties at Chuck E. Cheese. And he looks at me and he's like, so you willingly wanted to go here? Kids wanted their birthday parties here? What is wrong with you people?
And again, remember, folks, this guy's from Romania, where like all the creepy shit comes from. And if he's going, hell's wrong with you, something done gone wrong.
Yeah.
No offense, Andre. We love you.
He's upstairs watching a YouTube video. I don't think he cares. But yes, this was a game that just really got a life. So it's such a unique concept in the game, though. The idea is that you're a security guard in an office. You don't leave the office. The only access you have are security cameras. You're working at what is essentially a Chuck E. Cheese knockoff called Freddy Fazbear's. And it turns out that the animatronics like to roam the halls at night. And if they find you, you're dead. That's the short version of it.
The game ends, and you have to start all over again.
Pretty much. So you have to rely on watching the security cameras, which will occasionally show. It's interesting because there's not a lot of animation in this game. If you open up a camera, you might see one of the characters has moved from point A to point B, though you don't see them move. And you can lock the doors to your office, but all of this uses so much electricity, and you only have an allotted amount because this is apparently a cheap as hell location, and they can't be bothered to, pay their damn electric bills. So you have to do this from midnight till 6. I think every hour is like 10 minutes.
10 minutes
in real life, something like that. You get through that. As long as, you're not caught, as long as the power doesn't run out. Once it gets to 6, it rolls over, and then you go to the next night. And again, this was a fun game that really didn't get a lot of traction until YouTubers got a hold of it and started playing it. And the fans loved it. They loved watching these guys play these games. They loved watching them freak out and yell and scream and jump back and knock over their damn cameras and microphones because frickin' Foxy got out and they forgot to check Pirates Cove. And it was such a huge hit. Again, this first game came out in 2014. We've had 9 games since then. We've also had novels. We've had fan art. We've had oh my God, the amount of fan games. There are so many people who have taken this concept and programmed in their own games. I think one of the ones I saw someone did was Five Nights at the Krusty Krab, where you so you have to survive like animatronics of SpongeBob, Squidward, and Patrick.
One, by the way, just a quick fact check moment, just because I felt like I was wrong. Not every hour is 10 minutes. Every hour goes between 90 seconds to just 1 minute.
Oh, okay.
in the first game. They extended as they went off, but as again being an indie game, they didn't want you sitting there for an hour in one night, you know, and then being like, fuck this, I can't spend an hour each day.
Since then, we've gotten sequels. They have changed the player format a little bit. We got a virtual reality game called Help Wanted, which I refuse to play because I saw what you have to do. You basically have to like take apart the animatronics and replace the parts. And if you do one part, you touch one wire in the wrong way, they're going to jump up and kill you.
It's like Operation, except a lot more fun.
Yeah, it's like, except his nose doesn't glow. The guy jumps up and, you know, bites your frontal lobe. That's a Bite of 87 joke for anyone who knows the games. So yeah, the most recent game that came out was called Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, which is taken in a totally different way. It's now in this giant, it's essentially a shopping mall that has been converted into like an indoor theme park with go-kart racing and laser tag and mini golf and a bunch of stuff. And you have all the animatronics running around, and you're actually with your child who got locked in, and you're trying to escape the security guard / creepy woman in a bunny suit named Vanny. It sounds weird. I know. It just sounds so weird on paper.
Hey, it's all weird.
Yeah. So, but yeah, again, this was a really unique idea that has just exploded massively. Again, first game came out in 2014. I still sell out of my Five Nights at Freddy's jewelry. I've made tons of fan pieces. It's still crazy popular. We still have so many cosplayers coming up as both the original characters and the new security breach characters.
Roxy Rocket, I actually did a photo shoot with somebody who did Roxy Rocket. So
Roxanne Wolf.
Roxanne Wolf, sorry. Roxy Rocket is a DC character. Sorry, folks.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I know these games.
That's a Bruce Timm creation.
Crossover.
I'm sure it exists.
Oh, it does.
All right. So, Dorian, tell me about okay, because I know Robert didn't really play the games. What did you say, actually, Robert, when I asked if you'd played the games before? What was your response?
They're just not my cup of tea. I'm not trying to. This is one of those instances where I'm not trying to demean anyone who enjoys them. It's jump scares and basically understanding probability. And if that's a great way for you to kill a few hours, I have plenty of essentially brain dead things I enjoy doing. Godspeed, party on. It's not my speed.
Okay. Dorian, what was your introduction to the games?
My first introduction to games, I remember it coming out in 2014, and they had I think I played a demo of it first. And again, for anyone who's new to this show, and I apologize to people who've heard this now a billion times, I'm a filmmaker. I love horror movies. Most of what I make is horror movies. So any new horror game that comes out, I'll at least play the demo to see what it's going to be like. Well, the first time I played it, I almost immediately wrote it off because it was literally, again, Robert just kind of said this, it's a jump scare factory. And, but this one had a little more atmosphere, so I stuck with it a little longer. And then when I found out that there was a lot of lore that they were creating behind it, I'm like, okay, cool. And that was, I don't remember the first person, maybe it was Markiplier, talked about the lore first. It was either him or Matt Pat, who we will talk about later when we get to the movie. But
well, in theory.
That's just a theory.
It's just a theory. But so for me, that was my first introduction. And then as I got busier, I would catch up with Markiplier, just playing through them, and enjoy them that way. So, oh dear God, no. Oh dear God, no. Marvel vs. Freddys, Capcom's new hit fighting game.
Thank you, Shay.
We appreciate our loyal fans and their crazy ass ideas.
Indeed.
But yeah, so that was my introduction to it.
Yeah, and there is a crazy amount of lore about this, some of which has been confirmed by Cawthon, but a lot's just kind of circulated from the fans because Cawthon I think he's had a lot of fun essentially saying like, well, there's this, but I'm not going to confirm if this was the way it happened, and just letting the fans, letting their imaginations bubble, as it were.
Well, yeah, like my big FNAF fandom, like I obviously enjoy the games, I enjoy watching them, but the books, Silver Eyes, The Twisted Ones, and The Fourth Closets trilogy are, in my opinion, the best of the lore. But I will talk about that later too. So,
all right, so I think we've talked enough about the backstory of the game. So let's go ahead and jump in to the plot.
So we wind up with, again, this is a project that's been sort of in development hell for a while. It's pretty easy to see where, how you could make a movie out of the general premise. And as was mentioned, there's some decent lore that you can draw from for inspiration to come up with something here. And it just kind of got, it was kicked around, it was turned around, it just took a lot longer than maybe it should have to really kind of get this thing finally off the ground.
Yeah, Warner Brothers actually started developing this thing back in 2015. But I think it's also important to note that Cawthon was very protective of this. He wanted to make absolutely sure that he knew that if this got rushed, then it was just going to be the Banana Splits movie. So he really, really was cautious about how this was treated and how this was developed.
And you said Warner Brothers. Did you mean Universal, or did Warner Brothers have it first?
Warner Brothers had it first.
Okay.
And then in 2017, Blumhouse Productions took over. Chris Columbus was originally then going to take over.
That took all of us into the, for those of you who are film fans, obviously Chris Columbus is most well known for the first two Harry Potter movies. Before that, his biggest hit was Gremlins, I believe. So all of us were a little concerned of like, listen, I have no problem with old directors, especially those who are in the like 60s and 70s coming back and doing good hits. Mad Max Fury Road proved that just because, you're in your late 60s, early 70s doesn't mean you can't do a kick-ass film. But we're like, are you going to be able to like, okay, good luck, Chris. But thankfully, in my opinion, he did drop from the project.
And now we got Emma Tammi as our director. Little more underground director. She doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, believe it or not. But I've heard good things about her previous work.
Anyway, after all that, what we wind up with is our current film, which stars Josh Hutcherson, who is one of those guys who never got out of the shadow of his first big success. And whether you consider that unfortunate or not, I suppose is up to you. But
wait, which would you say was his first big success? I'm curious what what you qualify as that, because he's been in a lot.
He has okay. I would consider his first real big thing that he did was probably being Hunger Games.
Really, I'd say Bridge to Terabithia was his big.
No, that got him that was his. When he was more like a child actor, that kind of got him a bit more notice. But
you're using Hunger Games as his thing that propelled him from being child star to now you're an adult actor, or at least a young adult actor, and now we're going to cast you in more interesting things. Kind of like Zac Efron with High School Musical and such.
Yeah.
Because, he is a former child star. I think actually the first thing he did that really brought him attention as a child star was Zathura.
Yes. Again, when you're dealing with the younger side of his career, Zathura, which kind of bombed somewhat, unfortunately, because Zathura wasn't a terrible movie.
Which, by the way, just remember, for all of you who don't like Zathura, the director of that would about 4 years later go on to do Iron Man. So
I was going to say, Zathura is one of Jon Favreau's better movies, if you ask me. I mean, obviously, when you compare it against Iron Man, but he used a lot of practical effects in Zathura that I think really helped shape the format of the MCU.
Absolutely.
You're not wrong there.
Sorry, Robert. Back to the plot.
You're good. So Hutcherson here plays the older brother of a younger girl. I can't remember any of the character names, so feel free
Mike
to
and
correct me.
Abby.
Mike
and
Schmidt and Abby Schmidt.
These are Mike Schmidt is actually the name of the security guard from the first game. You see it when you get your depressingly low paycheck after surviving the first 5 nights.
And once again, true to life.
For the record, the first game also takes place in the late 80s, and I think they never give like a date for this movie, but considering the technology that we see and some of the clothing,
90s.
yeah,
It's
this has
gotta
to be
like
late 80s, early
95,
90s.
96 at the latest, I'd say.
They put forth an effort, and this is a little bit of a craft thing, but they tried to make the specific time setting a little bit ambiguous, which actually contributes to a slightly timeless quality to it. So not everyone has a specific generation of smartphone. In fact, I don't think we see many cell phones at all.
I don't think we see any cell
We
phones.
don't
We only
see-
see regular old-fashioned mounted on the wall phones,
Landlines.
landlines.
Indeed. So
Welcome
they-
to MU Hollywood's
Oh, my
archaeological segment. Where we talk about things you have no fucking clue what they are.
the fact that wasn't one of them rotary?
Probably.
Did Matthew Lillard's phone rotary? It might have been.
I think one of them, at least one of them was. So yeah, we're definitely, 90s, early 90s at most. Anyway, it had to be 90s because they said this place was big in the 80s. So this might be like early to early mid 90s.
But you're right. They did kind of pull a 1989 Batman feel to it where it's like there's some of the outfit that seems a little more modern, but that phone that Hutcherson is dialing is definitely 90s. I don't care how poor you are, you at least have a flip phone,
He's also
Yeah.
using an old-fashioned tape player to listen to his nature sounds cassette. It is a cassette.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going with 90s for the setting. But he is trying to overcome the trauma of having seen his younger brother abducted many years ago by
A mysterious figure. Dun dun dun.
That's actually the best way to put it.
It really is. And he's never quite gotten over that, and his family had troubles. They had another kid after the fact. Again, this would be Abby, who's what, like 9?
I would say maybe 7 or 6, really. The actress has got to be like in her like 9 or 10, but I think she's either like kindergarten or first grade, considering the
Okay.
toys we see her playing with when she's in school.
That's fair.
You also could be in a special needs school and be older due to the trauma of
That's
losing
true.
their parents.
Also
Which-
true, yeah, because they reference that a bit with her. She doesn't talk a whole lot. She's not big on eating, and there's
She doesn't have any human friends. She has imaginary friends.
And that's the
Don't we
reason
all?
that Hutcherson, as the older brother, is taking care of her, is we find out that the parents have died. Though they never explain how that happened. So I was like, what,
Well,
did they
they
get
didn't.
killed in an alley and you guys just didn't want to show it again?
They mentioned the mother said mom couldn't cut it. So
Oh, the dad left because he couldn't cut it.
okay. I always assume mom just kind of died of sickness and didn't really have the will to live, so to speak, after
So
she
the
lost her son and their dad left.
So the mom's Padme?
pretty much.
We
That's
have
the
to
way he
operate
makes
soon
it-
to get Abby out of there. She's lost the will to live.
It's the way they make it sound. It doesn't the way he describes it, it doesn't sound like suicide.
No, because
So I just always assumed it was just she just kind of gave up on life. That is a thing.
Yeah,
That
well, I mean, not to get into the craft side of it yet, but that was good with everything else we had to cover to not go into how the mom died. It was just like, mom passed away a few years ago. Dad just couldn't take it, so he took off. And it's like, cool. They're not, parents are dead / not there. Got it. Everything sucks. Moving on. Back to you, Rob.
And so Hutcherson is struggling. He's struggling to keep a job. He has a bad reaction to seeing a father kind of lose his temper a little bit with his son. So he loses his mall security gig, and he goes to see Matthew Lillard, which is just always a mistake in film.
Except if it's Scooby-Doo.
Even then, if they're going to him, if the characters are going to Shaggy, you got a problem.
Hey, I'm just happy to see Matthew Lillard back on the screen, man. I love Matthew Lillard. I do.
Oh, he's
So
a
much
ton
fun.
of fun.
Yeah,
And it is so
he's
great to
really
see
good in this.
him return to a bigger named horror film. Since his original, I think his first foray into horror was Scream. So
Might have been. Wouldn't surprise me. Anyway, he's struggling to keep it together. He's got an aunt. Well, they've got an aunt who is trying to get custody, allegedly purely for financial reasons. And the character's pretty awful, so that kind of bears out.
Yeah, it's like, this is an aunt who just needs the twirling mustache of evil. She is given no redeeming qualities.
She escaped from the Disney Institute of Shitty Family Members.
Pretty much.
And
Yeah.
that's like, again, it all either a twisty mustache, or I needed her to have like a fat cat to be like, Abby would be better with me, you know. And my two ugly daughters, yes. It's like, what the fuck? And bring me puppies for my new coat.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So there's a little bit of, again, kind of a custody battle going on there. And in the midst of this, again, Hutcherson goes to an employment office, which is run by Matthew Lillard, who sees his name on his form and kind of goes, oh, yeah, that's familiar.
Which, I'm sorry, if that doesn't freak you out, the guy goes from, listen, man, you got all these issues. It's going to be really hard to place you, Mr. Oh, I'm sorry. I know it's a movie and we have to suspend disbelief, but doesn't that make you go, why did you just look at my last name and freak?
Yeah, admittedly, I had to think back at the end of that. I was like, why did you? Oh, wait, never mind. That was a little weird.
But
he's desperate in the movie, so.
Foreshadowing is a narrative device.
Subtlety is a narrative device.
Subtlety is a style, and it's for cowards. Apparently. So he eventually says, look, I got a job for you. Terrible hours, bad pay, but it's consistent. Do you want it? And he says, no. So he says, all right, here, take my card. If you change your mind, give me a call back. Things get worse. So he takes the job. And it's watching this old, again, Chuck E. Cheese knockoff called Freddy Fazbear's. And things are a little weird. But, it's all right. It's kind of okay. And it turns out that his aunt is trying to sabotage him. So the babysitter that he constantly has hired for Abby is there looking for proof of his neglect, his unfitness to be a legal guardian.
Doesn't find any.
Can't find any. So they decide, well, you know what? If we can prove that he's terrible at his job, he'll lose his job. That'll make things more difficult. In classic villain overcomplication. We get some goons to go bust up the place because this movie needs some kind of body count. The goons die horribly.
In what is easily the best scene in the whole movie. Yeah,
it is. So
again, when we get to craft, we'll talk about that.
Our goons all die. There's a police officer who shows up and is like, if you can't remember how to lock a door, like they couldn't have gotten in through the locked bay doors, which is what they did. It's not like Hutcherson failed to. There's some bad writing in this movie, guys. There just is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it is an Easter egg though with who the police officer is, and she is the later antagonist in later games.
Yeah. But so they go back. He has to bring Abby with him now because his babysitter's dead and he can't find another one on short notice. So she's hanging out there while he cleans up the place from after it was ransacked, and the animatronics come to life and they start playing around with Abby, and she's like, no, they're my friends now. And Hutcherson's having dreams about what's actually happened here is these are the ghosts and at least partially the bodies of a bunch of dead kids that were put into these animatronics who are under the sway of the evil yellow rabbit.
The lore is that, yeah, and this is correct to the games. Someone donned a spare suit of, I think they say it's just supposed to be like, it was Bonnie the rabbit, but it was yellow. Took 5 children from the place, killed them, And then because police were snooping around, decided to put the bodies where no one else would ever find them, and he stuffed them in the bodies of the animatronics. Parents later complained when they were wondering why Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica had blood and pus oozing from their eyes.
And smelled so bad.
I'm not kidding. That is literally part of the lore. That is canon.
Canon that people are very, very dumb. Which tracks with real life more often than not. But they decide that these kids who speak to Hutcherson through his dreams decide that they want Abby because the evil yellow rabbit wants Abby and they're under his sway. And he does the kind of classic, I'm presented with a dream of everything that I could want, and I say yes, but I don't really mean it because this isn't real, and now I have to fight to fix things, and he gets attacked in the dream. And as the Nightmare on Elm Street taught us, if you get hurt in the dream or die in the dream, you die for real. So
I actually thought that those injuries were because he was attacked in his sleep by Foxy, and he woke up and noticed that he had been attacked. That's because we see that Foxy does get out a couple of nights. I thought that was what that was.
I tend to lean on the Freddy thing in this one. Like, if there's very specific injuries.
Now we have to actually wait. You have to actually clarify which Freddy.
Krueger.
The real
I'm
Freddy.
sorry. Like, you have to clarify this now. There's two Freddys.
True. I tend to lean on the Wes Craven side of things for how this played out.
I'll give that.
And he winds up talking with the police officer who patches him up after he gets beat up and nearly killed. And she takes him to a police storage facility and says, here, arm yourself, mostly with electronics. That'll screw with the animatronic functions. And go save your sister. So he goes and he shocks a bunch of the animatronics and he saves Abby, but then we get the yellow rabbit showing up and surprise twist.
You missed the giant exposition dump about who the yellow rabbit was.
Yeah, that's coming up.
Okay.
Because now the yellow rabbit shows up and surprise, it's not only the police officer's father, it's Matthew Lillard, and he's the one
introduced to as Mr. Raglan, but is actually William Afton.
Which I'd like to point out that Google originally released a press release saying he was playing William Afton. So when they changed it, all of us said, well, too late. You already ruined this twist ending, you dirtbags.
Well, sadly, with everyone, and this is a craft review thing, but honestly, since we're talking about the plot, let's be clear on this right off the bat. With the few characters that were in there, once you announced Hutcherson as Mike Schmidt, for anyone who knew the lore, when you start casting everyone else and you cast Matthew Lillard, we all go, that's Afton. Hi, purple guy. Angels and Demons, I know almost two different sides of the spectrum here, but Angels and Demons had the same problem. If you look at the opening cast, like Tom Hanks, know who that is? Okay, don't know though. Okay, these are some Italian actors and actresses. Nice, awesome. Good to see you guys here since it's set there. Okay, and we got a Skarsgård. Ooh, good guy or bad guy, not sure. And then when it said, and Ewan McGregor, we all went, well, gee, who's the bad guy in this? So to be fair, even if they hadn't leaked it, I think we all would have gone.
You know, Angels and Demons was one of my favorite books, and I still say they should have cast Orlando Bloom in that role.
Which role?
Ewan McGregor's role. In the books, the character. Well, in the books, what's the title? Dorian Carmelego?
Carmelego.
Yeah, was described as young, black-haired, thin mustache. It literally sounded like the way you see Orlando Bloom in
Pirates.
the Pirates movies. Yeah, so I always pictured that.
But yeah, so I mean, again, the whole point being, once they cast Matthew Lillard, we're all like, well, gee, I wonder who this is. As you were, Rob.
Yeah, look, we have a cast that's like 6 people who have genuine speaking lines here. Like, and if you bring in Matthew Lillard,
2 YouTubers,
and if you bring in someone like Matthew Lillard, he's not going to be there for 5 minutes in the beginning as a setup guy. Like, he's there for a more specific. But he shows up, and we get the reveal that this is the creature that killed. He dropped the piano on
Teddy
Bob
Valiant.
Hoskins brothers. Bob Hoskins' brother.
Yeah, he's not only the one who killed the 5 children, he's the one who abducted Mike's younger brother.
He's the author of All Your Pain. I can get more references out of that, but he shows up then, and we get a little bit of a fight, not much of one. His daughter shows up, she gets stabbed, and in the course of all this, it's implied that the children who have been communicating thorough concepts and somewhat complicated ones via dreams are half controlled by the pictures that are up on this like collage wall. And
I don't think it's so much they're controlled. I think it's more
a brainwashing thing.
Yeah, I think it's essentially they see the picture on the wall of them happy with it, and I don't think they remember. And for the record, I know these kids are dead, but there is something to be said about children repressing traumatic memories and forgetting about that kind of stuff.
Well,
I always thought it was kind of like that.
You keep hearing that thing in the background. We love the yellow rabbit. We love the yellow rabbit. So it's like if that was drilled in their heads before they were murdered, it's a possibility.
It is, and this is all undone by Abby drawing a picture of the yellow rabbit killing them. And because she now crossed the red wire with the blue wire, they get their free will back, and they all remember what happened to them. And
the Ghost Army goes to save Gondor.
Yeah, pretty much.
And
so
Matthew
the
Lillard
animatronics
dies in admittedly a pretty gruesome way.
He gets attacked. His suit kind of gets busted, and then parts of it wind up fused to his body. They all drag him off, and the place starts collapsing, and our heroes run out, and they stick the officer in the hospital, and somewhere along the line, the Freddy the bear went to Abby's house when their aunt was watching them and violently murdered her. Or did she? Because we might want a sequel, and if we didn't see that she's dead but just dealt with, then maybe she'll come back. Who knows?
Yeah, we just see her legs, and she's on the floor. And the ghost of Golden Freddy
fell asleep.
Yeah, the ghost of Golden Freddy says she fell asleep. So,
yeah.
But either way, Mike faces no repercussions for his aunt either being knocked out or killed in his living room.
That's what we see. So they escape. Matthew Lillard is left to suffer horribly in one of the rooms as the animatronics watch over him.
To become Springtrap in Game 3.
Abby starts socializing properly and seems to be adjusting more, and Mike is still unemployed. But everything seems better now, so...
Yeah, resolution. We don't need a resolution.
We end on Abby going, I still wonder about my friends sometimes, and then we flash over to, again, Matthew Lillard just, like, horribly suffering as the others watch, and then we fade to black, and we get a final little bit with, again, one of the YouTubers who helped make the game popular, in his cab, being jump-scared perpetually. And I think this time it's by the cupcake.
No, it's by the balloon guy.
Balloon Boy.
Balloon
Boy didn't show up until Game 2, and he doesn't actually attack. He prohibits you from activating other controls. So if he gets into the room, you better pray to God that no one else does. But yeah, Balloon Boy just showed up a couple of times as a jump scare, and I know that we always complain about jump scares and being lazy, and frankly, the Balloon Boy jump scares are lazy, but considering that Five Nights at Freddy's is built on the concept of jump scares, this is one of the few times where I'm willing to say it's part of the franchise. Let it pass.
We knew this was coming. You knew what you signed up for. And if you didn't, we didn't get at least 1 or 2 jump scares, we would have been like...
Yeah, if the jump scares are, like, again, we've talked about this before, but as a general rule, like, my issue with it is if it's lazy and doesn't serve a purpose, I have an issue with it. When the entire premise of the material you're adapting is that the jump scares are essentially an end unto themselves, you kind of got to shrug. It's part of the buy-in at that point. You just kind of got to roll with it.
With Balloon Boy, I did have a couple of friends of mine who had theories that said that Balloon Boy was Garrett, the little brother, which is why he keeps jump scaring Mike. I don't think that's where they're going, but I was like, that is a fair Fair theory.
I'm actually looking up. Did they ever say? Nope. It's never
didn't.
confirmed who's haunting Balloon Boy. That lore is still unsolved.
Until we
I
get
think-
until we
I
get
think
popular
Henry-
consensus.
Right. I think it's Henry Emily, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, and again, that's the movie. You don't mind me jumping in with a couple of craft things, then we can kick it over to you guys who are a bit more into the franchise.
Please go ahead.
Let me premise everything I'm about to say in the negative sense with the following positive. The people who are part of this fandom seem very happy with this, and I am happy for them because we've all been fans of something that in adaptation was butchered. And if nothing else, I can express my sincere
Cough, cough, shining, cough, cough.
Ooh, that's a can of worms.
No, I have to do that for Alexis. That's a long-standing fight between us. That's
Okay.
the battle on Mustafar for she and I.
It is.
Continue uninterrupted.
But I my sincere congratulations to that fan base for getting an adaptation of something they like that they feel does justice to it and that they enjoy. That's an all too rare thing these days when every bit of IP is being mined. And there's a saying in mining that 2 years ago what would have been tailings is what we're actually mining today. And that's where we're getting a little bit with some of these things. It's how far down the rabbit hole can we go to find an IP with a somewhat dedicated fan base that we can potentially turn into something? And again, we're getting down there. We're getting down that particular rabbit hole a fair bit. But to the fans of this, again, I'm glad you got something out of this that you enjoyed. As a movie, this is about 20 minutes too long. A big chunk of the middle kind of dies. And there's a real lack of both narrative momentum and tension and all the stuff that you need to keep a movie going. The actual writing is fairly poor. There's a lot of stuff that either needed to be addressed and wasn't, or they spend a bit too much time on. There's some of the acting that no, I'm not going to criticize the acting too much. It fits the tone that they're going for, and in that respect, I think my only gripe with the acting would be there's a real lack of chemistry with, and I don't just mean romantic chemistry, I mean on-screen chemistry with Hutcherson and the policewoman.
That's Vanessa, played by Elizabeth Lail. Let's see here. Were you part of the group that reviewed You? Because she's in that.
I don't think so.
All right. She was formerly in Once Upon a Time, Ordinary Joe, You, and Dead of Summer. So.
Again, she's gotten some work, and neither her or Hutcherson are bad actors. I don't mean, when I say there's a lack of chemistry there, you can have two very good actors who, for whatever reason on screen, it just doesn't click. And
Catherine Zeta-Jones and Sean Connery prove that.
A little bit.
They weren't going for chemistry there. They were like, hey, all you girls in your late 20s and early 30s who have a big thing for Sean Connery, enjoy this. This is for you. That was all about sexual tension between those two. That wasn't.
There was no sexual tension. That's the problem.
See, unfortunately, a lot of people that are younger than you disagree.
Yeah,
I thought the same thing until I watched it with a couple of friends who are like big Zeta-Jones fans, but they're also younger, but still have a thing for Sean Connery, even past his death. Damn you for dying on my birthday, you asshole. But went back, and again, I'm not disagreeing with your point of view on this, Alexis, because it is fair. But a lot of people that their late 20s, early 30s, my group is like, yeah, no, the sexual tension is, I love it. It's like, so again, it's very much, again, what this entire show is about. Opinions, are abound, and
Your
one's
age
exactly.
group. You're 5 years younger than me.
That still counts. Counts.
Well, I can see the argument for the chemistry between those two in that respect, and again, whether you agree specifically or not, I can see the case for it. And because this one is more in the non-romantic side of things, if I could posit another this one's more antagonistic in relationship, but hard to believe that two relatively talented guys, at least in terms of like screen presence, but like Schwarzenegger and James Caan there was no mesh there, and they were both in a movie called Eraser, which is not a bad flick, all things considered. But like you put the part of the appeal of putting those two together is to see those two on the screen together, and there's nothing there. I mean, again, they're opposed. James Caan's the bad guy, surprise, surprise. But there's just like, again, it just doesn't click, and sometimes it just doesn't. It's not a reflection of the ability of the actors. It's just sometimes it doesn't work.
Well, I think they were building up something with these two. I would call their relationship, and I do not insult with the following. I do not insult anyone who suffers from this actual condition. Vanessa's character was extremely bipolar.
Yeah.
There's one moment she's very sweet, and again, in my craft review, I'll bring up more of this. But again, the relationship is very bipolar. She goes from being very sweet and let's play with the animatronics and make a fort to, if you bring Abby here again, I will shoot you. And it's like, dude, 10 minutes ago, you were helping us build a fort. The fuck's wrong with your ass?
Yeah, you're not wrong there. And again, that's a writing issue that just you can't quite get around here, or a characterization, which is a subset of the writing, depending on how you want to look at it. So that's a problem. There's a lack of tension in most of this. That again, I think is a byproduct of the runtime. It's just this movie clocks in at what, an hour and 50?
Hang on a second, scrolling up here.
Hour
109.
Okay, so I'll round to 150 for the sake of argument. This needed like 15-20 minutes cut out. There's a lot of stuff that just it kind of drags the overall film down.
I do think, though, that the reason they did it this way is because when we get to the sequel, I have a feeling that Mike will not be with us, nor Abby. We will be moving to new characters. So they wanted to fully wrap up their story. And again, I didn't work on the movie. I have no idea. But, more's the pity. But I'm assuming that this was like, this is their chapter. And now the next movie will move on to new characters and we'll explore new mysteries of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria and continue to mine this already Moria level, fandom and lore.
Careful, don't delve too greedily or too deeply.
I do have on record here, Cawthon said that if we get a second and third film, he wants it to follow the second and third games. It's important to note that the second game is actually a prequel. It takes place before the first game. Third game takes place like 20, 30 years in the future. And Matthew Lillard has revealed he signed a 3-picture deal.
Mm-hmm.
Which does make sense because Afton is a reoccurring part of the series. So, but yeah, if we get a sequel, Mike and Abby will not be involved.
And I'm okay. There's a real argument to be made, just if we don't mind talking about how you can structure franchises in some respect. There was a real argument that the original idea for the Halloween franchise was how that was a better direction than what we got. Because for those of you who don't know, Halloween originally supposed to be kind of a one-off. They get a sequel because it's Halloween. It's a great movie. But the original idea was that the story of Michael Myers was done after Halloween 2. And then Halloween 3 would be something different. Halloween 4 I think he wanted it to be like 2-picture cycles. So
Silver Shamrock.
Something new and weird that happened every Halloween. The story of Michael Myers was supposed to end at the end of the 78 movie of just he's out there somewhere and God knows if he'll come back again. Unfortunately, the character was so popular, as you said, Robert, that they gave it a second movie, and that's why Carpenter and Hill, although they were not in the directing chair / producer chair for that one, asked Tommy Lee Wallace, it's like, blow him to hell. Like, I know you can't put him in pieces because they won't let the MPAA won't let you do that, but I want that's why the final thing of Halloween 2 is this very 1940s Frankenstein. He's on fire. He's still walking. And then, it's like, okay, he's dead. We got it. Now we're going to do something else.
It was supposed to be an anthology series. We were supposed to get, it was going to be connected to Halloween. And I think they said they wanted the movies to be loosely connected to each other. Like there were little hints and ties, you know, maybe something about Haddonfield being mentioned in the third one, something like that.
It was supposed to be like, you know, after all that craziness in Haddonfield 2 years ago, you know, anything's possible. It's like, see, they connect.
And unfortunately, the Halloween 3 was just roundly rejected.
I don't understand why. For those of you, I know the official spooky season is over, but if you haven't seen Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, go see it. It's awesome. It's set in a completely different universe than Halloween, and the proof of this is they're actually watching the Halloween movie on a TV in the film. But it's a great movie. Go see it. Continue.
You will have the Silver Shamrock song stuck in your head from now until eternity.
3 more days till Halloween.
Halloween. 3 more days till Halloween. Silver Shamrock.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
I told you, stuck in your head, never going away.
It's like the Jurassic Park theme.
Okay.
True, but at least that's John Williams.
Yeah, sorry, but for that, that just royally pissed me off.
I'll put him back on.
Fine.
What did I do?
You put the Jurassic Park thing back in my head. I just got it out.
Could have been worse. It could have said DuckTales.
I knew you were going to say it. I freaking knew that was going to be the next one that came out of your mouth.
To be fair, you opened the door, and it would have been a shame if I didn't walk through it. But anyways.
But to kind of loop that back again, with that being the original intent of the Halloween franchise, and then unfortunately, again, Season of the Witch is rejected by the market, and so fine, we get more we've then got Michael Myers movies from then until a couple of years ago with Halloween Ends, when they literally had to feed him into a metal shredder.
But even Carpenter himself says the Halloween franchise is not over.
I'm sure it's not. But if Five Nights at Freddy's is able to, if Five Nights at Freddy's is able to pivot away from, again, having a recurring character like Matthew Lillard is fine, but moving it around in the chronology and not letting it get too tied down to his villain might be for the best, depending on how they want to spin this thing forward. But I think the last thing I have for Kraft, again, I do want to praise again a lot of the actors understand the brief. This is not deep, this is not thought-provoking, but please be scared believably, and most of them are. So kudos for that. And Matthew Lillard is a lot of fun chewing scenery. So hats off to him. I think my big negative for this one is just there's a lack of tension, and it feels like the original script didn't have the best sequence in the movie. Like, my hunch would be that originally we didn't have the animatronics killing all those like just low-level goons, because it almost feels out of place apart from trying to get Abby to the location to try and set up what happens in the third act. And somebody mentioned at some point, like, okay, we need a body count here. Doesn't have to be huge, but if these things don't kill someone at some point, what are we doing here? So we get the sequence where, again, the ant becomes more horrible and they all decide, well, we'll break in, and then we get some goons who can die on screen, and well, sort of on screen. And there's a lot good here, and I can see why, in a lot of respects, the fandom is happy with it. And again, bless you, happy for you, sincerely. If you're not part of that fandom, I feel like this is going to be a bit of a tougher movie to get through. I was frankly bored for big stretches of it.
One of the friends I watched it with had kids that really enjoy the Five Nights at Freddy's thing, but she had never, played any of the games, watched any of the lore videos, and like even watched a playthrough of it. So about 15 minutes in, she's like, I really should have done some homework before I got into this one.
Andre and I saw this opening night with a packed theater. It took for a while for us to find a theater that had tickets that weren't like crammed in the front seat. And the audience kept going nuts the whole time. They just, it's like I swear to God, every time there was an Easter egg, every time we saw one of the animatronics move, every time Matt Pat opened his mouth, it's like, Cap, look, it's like on your left.
Or originally Puny God from First Avengers.
One of the worst viewing experiences I've ever had in my life was I went to like a midnight showing of Avengers.
I've heard the story.
You have, but I don't think Dorian has. So, again, midnight showing, went to Avengers, packed theater, and it was the most miserable experience I've ever had. Not because I hate people, I kind of do. But
we all know you hate people, Robert.
It's not that I hate people, but I do.
I kind of do, but after every line of dialogue, the audience popped, which made it impossible to hear the next line of dialogue. I walked out of that theater. I'm not saying like the movie itself is what it is, but I left that theater just like pissed, because part of the experience is supposed to be being able to understand everything. Like this is not a deep movie. It's not like losing lines of dialogue in Tarantino or something. But it was not a fun experience, and I wound up going with my family a couple of days later, and much better experience. Like, oh, the zinger that followed the zinger you all popped for was actually better, so screw you for making me miss it the first time. And, or again, like they're popping for things that they shouldn't pop for, and unfortunately that they've started writing some of those movies down the stretch with those breaks in mind. It felt like sitcom writing. Like, write a line, everyone pause for laughter, then the next line, and it became very unnatural down the stretch, and I blame that whole thing.
Yeah, the kids in the audience, it was mostly teenagers and I would say college students.
That tracks.
And they just would not shut up. When Vanessa says that she's Afton's daughter, I actually heard at least 4 people shout, "What?" It just, again, I usually like being in a theater when people are that energetic. Robert, you and I will fight about this all the time, but I was one of those people when I saw Endgame, when Cap caught the hammer, when he finally said Avengers Assemble. I lost my mind, and I loved that I was surrounded by people who were also jumping up and cheering. I loved that feeling. This is one of the few times I was like, you people, shut up!
The difference, though, there is that the writers are very aware that was going to get everybody. Because, again, people have been waiting for this, especially Avengers Assemble, him grabbing Mjolnir. That's only for, like, the deep-end comic fans, I would say. But at least with that, when he catches that hammer, there's no dialogue. It's just music. And it's Cap kicking ass. So if you're going, what? Or the whole audience is going, what?
The only thing you hear is Thor saying, I knew it.
Yeah, you're not missing the great Hans Zimmer and So's, music, or the only thing you're missing is the music. You're not missing any important dialogue. And even Avengers Assemble is like Avengers, pause, and everybody takes a deep breath and, assemble. Then you can go nuts because, again, it's just music and people running at something. The filmmakers took that into account because they knew everyone's going to be going fucking nuts. So there's some difference there.
That actually also brings me, son, because again, I mentioned Matt Pat, because this film does have 2 very big cameos, and that is Matt Pat and Corey Kenshin. These are 2 YouTube stars who greatly influence the rise of Five Nights at Freddy's. Matt Pat specifically runs a show called Game Theory. I have lost track of how many videos that man has made talking about the lore of this game, and just I going through what could be behind all of this. He's really added a lot to that. And yeah, when he was on screen trying to get them to order lunch, I could not hear a damn word he was saying because everyone in the audience was just going insane. When Corey Kenshin shows up in the cab, even though that scene was in the freaking trailer, we knew it was in it, but everyone still went nuts. And frankly, this actually caught me off guard. We've talked Markiplier a lot on this show because Markiplier's name is practically synonymous with Five Nights at Freddy's.
The king of Five Nights at Freddy's.
He is the king of Five Nights at Freddy's, self-proclaimed Gesundheit. And he was apparently offered a cameo. But Mr. Plyer, or whatever the hell his real last name is,
Fishbox.
Fishbach, thank you, is actually directing his feature film debut. He is making an adaptation of Iron Lung. And
there are teaser trailers out for that.
Yes.
Doesn't feature any footage, but so the few days
trailer, but yeah.
Yeah, the few days they needed him, he could not be away from the set. So he said, sorry, no. But he was supposed to be that security guard in the opening scene who we see get killed by Foxy. And I looked at them like, that would have been a disaster. The whole audience, again, would have gone ape shit. We all would have been, it's like, oh my God, it's Markiplier. It's Markiplier. And it would have ruined the tension of that scene. You're supposed to be, it's like, oh God, he's running. He's blocked the door. Something's after him. If it was freaking Markiplier, no one would shut up, and it just would have completely destroyed that moment.
Not only that, but the whole feeling of the film would have gotten off to a more comedic start than we needed it to.
Mm-hmm.
And
like,
it would have
Markiplier's gonna die.
Right. And which I'm very glad that they didn't. He was unavailable. For that. Because that
I'm sure he'll cameo in the sequel.
Oh yeah, and I got a note here that I really want him to play. But yeah, it's and Markiplier is actually a very good. Mark Fishbach, his real name, is a very good actor. Mm-hmm. It would have been a waste to put him in this high-pitched screaming role. Not that he couldn't do it, because I know he could have. But again, it would have been like, well, now we've killed off Markiplier. We can't have him necessarily come back for like a bigger, more interesting role, When
I saw the movie, and I walked away thinking, I wonder what before I found out about this, I was like, I wonder what cameo they were going to have him do. I thought they were going to have him play Mike's security guard friend in the mall scene when they're talking about the book about Dream Theory. I was like, that would have been a good cameo for him. Something like that would make sense, and not just not detract from the tension of the movie.
Yeah, that might work. But you said you had someone that you think he should essentially be in one of the sequels. So I'm kind of
done. Well, this does come from the lore, but it also specifically comes from the books. There is a character named. Oh, hold on. I'm going to screw up the last name, but he is the original creator of the animatronics.
Afton's partner, right?
Yes, it's Henry. Give me just a second. I am so sorry. Henry Emily. Sorry, it's a weird name and it threw me off for a second. Henry Emily is the character's name. And I think if, again, the second, because I read the same thing about the second movie being based on the second game and that being a prequel, I think Mark's face, his ability to be very kind and loving. Again, just a shot of him, not old man Markiplier, but like younger man who needs the readers, and he's working on this animatronic, and he's talking to it, and he's being all sweet and kind. And we de-age Lillard just a little bit, have him shave, bring some stuff up. He's the twisted businessman, Henry is this, I just want to make, things that'll make children happy. And you have this character of Markiplier, Mark Fishbach playing, in a way, kind of our hero that's our doomed hero. That's like, we know he doesn't live, but I feel that would really lean into Mark's strengths as an actor and a performer. And I think that he could really bring since that character is barely talked about, rarely, if any, seen. I'd have to go back and look at all the games and the mini games inside the games. But I don't think he's ever seen. And I think if anyone, especially getting a big, huge fan of the series to play the original creator of these animatronics before Afton took them and, sent them basically to hell, Mark would be great for that. He'd have a bigger role. It would be less, he would have obviously some funny moments, but it'd be more dramatic. We know his character has to die. So now we're asking ourselves how that's going to happen. And if you're fans of Markiplier, you're hating that moment when, he finally, either gets in front of Afton or tries to stop him and gets killed. You can almost have a Batman Returns style, like funeral moments, kind of like they did at the end of this movie where they're, not as nice, because this one they just hook Afton, they're just dragging his ass away. But it would be so beautiful to kind of recreate that moment from Batman Returns when the penguins are pushing Penguin into the water, but it's like the animatronics carrying Henry away as Afton makes his escape. And it's this, you get the really sad music of they realize their creator who loved them is gone, and all that's left is this psychopath that's going to twist them and, use them for dark purposes.
I'm down. So
I could see that.
anybody listening, to the unpaid intern listening, please pass that idea along.
Right. At Frankie Pictures, man. Universal, hit me up.
Then hire,
I got ideas.
Then hire Dorian.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to do what? I don't know. I thought it was fun.
So Dorian, do you want to talk craft, or do you want me to talk craft now? Robert, you were done.
Yeah,
right?
I'm pretty much done.
Okay.
So
Alexis, is up to you. I mean, you're hosting, so if you want to go first, I don't mind going last.
All right. Well, I will say there's two positive things I do really want to talk about with this movie. And the first is the animatronics. They actually used puppets from the Jim Henson production company, and I think they looked amazing. I was really happy that they minimized the amount of CGI. There's actually a really funny article with the director talking about how, because of just some bugs in the programming, occasionally between takes, the animatronics' eyes would twitch. It just freaked everyone out.
All right, for this scene, what we want you to... Okay, whatever the fuck that thing is doing, make it stop.
Exactly.
I've seen this game. It don't end well.
It's not unheard of with puppets like that. I've heard some horror stories from the first Jurassic Park movie about the T-Rex accidentally glitching a couple of times while between takes.
I want to cover the one from Labyrinth, too, which a little earlier... Sorry, Dark Crystal would... twitch, and it was like, die, unholy spawn of Satan.
Well, because they're not just puppets, they're robots. You essentially have people in the suits running the bodies, and you have a remote control puppet operating the eyes and the head, just kind of like that. Yeah. So it's not unheard of for there to be glitches between the robot head and the robot and the puppeteer controlling him. That's very common in this business.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't stop it from being creepy as fuck though. And the other thing I want to talk about is there was one really good scene in this movie, but it also brings up a real problem with it. And that's the scene with the break-in. We have our 4 red shirts going in, and it is our one time we actually see the animatronics doing what we want the animatronics to do, and that is being creepy and killing. You have a great moment of one of the dudes in the kitchen, and as the camera pans, you see Chica walking behind the air conditioning fans just slightly. You have one guy hide in the closet. The light flickers, and in that flicker, you suddenly see Bonnie's behind him. And it's really good and really well done, and I loved it. But at the same time, you realize that Five Nights at Freddy's, one of the scariest game franchises in video game history, the movie adaptation is not that scary. This movie needed more scares. Now, and I'm not going to say they should have made it rated R. I'm fine with it being PG-13 because, again, they had to appeal to the Five Nights at Freddy's fan base. You make this thing R, you have effectively shot yourself in the foot. They needed younger audiences for that. I get that. But there should have been so many more scenes. And I also get that we couldn't have it where Mike is surviving every, the 5 nights, because that just, I believe Markiplier said it best. It's like, why would I come back for another night of this crap? I get that they can't have that, but this movie just wasn't that scary, and that's what we want. And I was okay with the stupid jump scares from Balloon Boy. I was fine with that. But
it's very possible to make scary PG-13 horror movies. It just takes a bit more talent than I think they were able to assemble for this one.
They can't all be scary stories to tell in the dark.
Or The Others, which is PG-13, or... Again, there's some quality PG-13 horror movies out there. They exist, and...
We call them gateway horror.
And to that point, this is fairly benign gateway horror, and if you have really wimpy children, this might be one that they could tolerate in that respect.
Yeah, I
Dorian,
was real.
about time for
I
your
was just
list.
expecting a lot more scares. I just was expecting more. So, Dorian, take us home.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I actually on the first viewing, I have to agree with you, Alexis. The people I was watching it with, we did have someone in our audience that was catching every single Easter egg and being like, "Ah!" And that was me. So I was that asshole in the crowd. Except we watched it on Peacock, so
because you were going to go to a small independent theater and they weren't showing it.
It sadly didn't have it, and but upon the second watching, I realized, there was no way this thing could not be a fan-focused film.
Yeah.
There's no way that would have worked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I shouldn't say no way because nothing's impossible. But for the fan base and for what they're expecting, this needed to be full of Easter eggs and such like that. So, I had a fun time with it, but I had some issues. I really wish there'd been more mystery. And that brings me straight to my favorite FNAF lore, which is the books. And again, I mentioned them before. If those of you who didn't catch it the first time, the 3 books are, there were crap ton, they did smaller ones as well, but the big trilogy is Silver Eyes, Twisted Ones, and The Fourth Closet. They're great. They follow a really cool, mysterious path. There's a lot of very, very scary scenes. First book's a little slow, but a good director, especially like the one we got. Emma, I cannot remember her name now. Sorry. I apologize, fellow director. My bad. When we meet, don't kick me in the face.
Emma Tammi.
Someone like her, especially with her past work, could have made the book series really expanded. You still could have kept it PG-13. Because I agree with you. This movie I would put next to stuff like, for kids to watch at Halloween, I put next to, obviously, Nightmare Before Christmas, Coraline, Monster House, Paranorma, etc. So I liked how they approached it. But the issues I had with it, again, well, actually, some of the good things is it was brilliant setting it in the 90s. It would not have worked modern day with smartphones and all that shit. It's like, no.
Yeah, I was going to say, all he had to do was Google Freddy Fazbear's and been like, I am so sure as fuck not taking that job. Click.
I'll be homeless. We'll get a shopping cart, Abby, and we'll have a cute little Pursuit of Happiness style story, and it'll be great. But Alexis, something you mentioned earlier, and again, obviously Wes Craven passed away several years ago now. Could you imagine, though, if he'd still been alive and, the brain cancer had not been affecting him, if he had been given the center seat on this? Emma did amazing, and I'm not shitting on what she did. But for someone who knows how to handle kids being attacked and, a killer who takes children, again, that's what put him on the throne of a horror lord, was obviously Freddy Krueger. And again, could you imagine the interview now? It's interesting coming back to Freddy. Not the Freddy I was expecting to come back to, but here we are. But no, that was brilliant. That would have been brilliant. But again, Emma did fantastic in the director's chair. Some small issues though, and slight, I guess, retcons on my end is, first of all, don't give us a villain that we want. Hi, Mark. Hi, Dad.
Hi, Mark. We've been talking porn.
To be fair, bitchy yoga mom has been talking porn. We fought against it. To be fair, there is video evidence. But anyways, with the ant, this is a rule in horror, which I think, although it has become a trope, is a trope the audience likes and doesn't have a problem with. Do not give us a villain we hate so much that we want to see them dead, and don't show us them dying.
Yeah.
Even when at least with the fall of House of Usher, we hated those characters so much we rejoiced when they died.
Right. See our review on that on this actual page.
Plug.
Shameless. But anyways, the babysitter, who I didn't really have a problem with, she gets bitten in, bitten in half.
She actually gets the most gruesome death.
Yeah, or sorry, she loses her head.
I'll say for a PG-13, that was a pretty damn gruesome death.
Even in Shadow, which again is fine. That thing is how Indiana Jones, especially Temple of Doom, would handle some of the more gruesome death scenes. You just see the shadow of the guy attached to the ceiling fan. But I didn't have as much of a problem with her as I had with the aunt. It's like, show us the aunt dying. You set up this bitchy, evil person that, albeit she has a right idea of like, hey, you know, Mike's not good to be taking care of her. She's going about it all the wrong way. And so that really ticked me off. But yeah, I already said the books are a million times better. But yeah, the books are amazing. If you enjoyed this movie but want a better story, again, go to the trilogy of books that I mentioned. They're easy to find. They have comic book adaptations now, so if you want a more visual version, check those out. My biggest issue...
Jesse, Mark still likes synergy.
My biggest issue with this entire story was this. I love the animatronics. I like that they had weight to them. They felt like, you knew they were there.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest issue is I did not, and we've mentioned both these people, and well, both this person and this movie. I did not need Stephen King's version of Nightmare on Elm Street to be a side plot of Mike's like, I gotta get into my head. Like, that felt like it was a totally different movie. That had it been a totally different movie, I totally would have watched. Even it was with, Hutcherson, playing the role. It seemed like an interesting, psychological, even supernatural, you could have put in there, murder mystery. But again, it felt like a Stephen King book, stumbled on set, and they were like, well, shit, the cameras are already rolling. Let's roll this bitch.
We have this leftover bit from the Black Phone.
I was expecting, here's a way you could have,
which apparently is getting a sequel.
Mm-hmm. Black Phone 2.
I'm fine with that. I love Black Phone.
If Joe Hill has a good idea, I will trust him to run with it.
Way they could have done it was Mike is I know this is so cliche, but Mike could have been haunted by nightmares, and he could be falling asleep at work because he said, I don't sleep well at night because I keep having the same dream.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe part of him is saying, it's like, I don't want to stop the dreams because I feel guilty. I feel like I need to be punished because it's my fault that my brother disappeared. Again, cliche, but it's a cliche that works.
And it would have been better if his brother had gone missing at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, and that's why he takes the job. Maybe I can get closer to figuring out what actually happened if I walk those halls again.
Yeah, there was some real continuity. Continuity is the closest word I can get to that issues. If they were like in Nebraska, he's got that poster that he uses as a visual reference to try and help him return to the same dream. I don't know if we're dealing with. I don't know if that was just like a similar tree setup that he was using, or if there was some kind of like vacation that they were on.
It looked like they went camping, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which hasn't Josh Hutcherson learned? Do not be in the middle of a gigantic forest. Shit will go wrong.
You'd think he'd learn at some point, but it's a little bit unclear, like the geography that we're dealing with. Like, where was that in relation to where they live? Was that a thing that happened again? Some other place, some other state? And I understand the desire to keep a degree of like everywhereness, like quasi-ambiguity around this, so that it's easier to associate. But when you lack like serious geography in this respect, it also makes it harder to invest. It makes it feel super convenient that no, of course it was Matthew Lillard. Narratively, yeah, he's one of only like 5 characters in the movie, but in reality, this is a world with like people and towns and cities, and there's just a lot there that winds up not holding up to even baseline scrutiny, and it hurts the overall thing. When if this happened very close to home, then just it's not hard to work that into the dialogue and work that into the story. And
yeah, that like even the Celebrate poster that is behind me, that could have been, instead of Nebraska. Again, if you put it 5 nights at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, you really do close it off, correctly. And again, Mr. Radulich did make a good point in the comments that, flashbacks and night terrors are a part of post-traumatic stress disorder,
mm-hmm.
which again, I realize doesn't go away in, it may never go away your entire life. My other kind of tiny issue on that point, still of the I didn't need Stephen King's Nightmare on Elm Street, was it's like, okay, you have a sister to take care of. You look like you were maybe 10, 11. And, you know, when Garrett, your brother, was kidnapped, you're now Josh Hutcherson is 31 years old. I know they were trying to kind of play him like late 20s, I'm assuming. But it's like, that's been a good 10 years. With all the other stuff you've gone through in life, I don't know if this whole, like, I am obsessed about finding this still works for me personally as a writer, as a creator. But again, in the grand scheme of the movie, it didn't hurt it. It slowed it down a little bit, in my opinion, but didn't hurt it.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, again, with all the other fan lore stuff in there, it was like, I can forgive this. I mean, it would have, if you cut that out, it would have given us more time to do cool shit, but you didn't. So here we are. Doing cool shit brings me to my last craft point. So we talked about in the plot, the daughter says, well, so before, where we're arming up, the daughter says, I can't come with you because, you know, he's my dad, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But again, we've seen enough movies, enough characters that have the, you know, can I kill my family member, who do, much like this character does, come in at the last minute like, bitch, back off. You know, it's our heroic, you know, redemption return in a way. But I think with FNAF, Five Nights at Freddy's, sorry, I know most fans will get it as FNAF, but for anyone who's not a fan, like, what the fuck did he just say? He had a small stroke there. But when the daughter got stabbed, if Afton had thrown her, she hits, you know, like side of the face, hits that claw game thing, goes down. She's on the side of her face like this. This is all we're seeing. And she tells the girl, like, show them what really happened. This is up to you. He does. Springtrap is slowly but surely created. We go over to get the cop up, and she's like, no, just leave me here. Just get out of here. And we pull her up. Half of her face is popped off. Because for those of you who go deeper into lore, including the books, Henry Emily, the original creator of the animatronics, as well as Afton, had gotten so good that they could create human-like animatronics that looked fully human. Had the daughter been a robot or an animatronic, and I think that would have hit more hard for two reasons. One, Matthew Lillard, I know, has baby face. It's fine. I mean, the man's in his 50s. He barely looks like he's exited his 30s. Just got some gray in there because he lived hard. But he doesn't look old enough to be the
It is a little weird to think of Matthew Lillard having a daughter in his 20s.
Well, and a daughter that looks, again, I'm not saying the actor is unattractive in any way, but she looks older. She looks more mature. So I feel like it would make more sense to have that as an adult animatronic of like, you know, hey, I did kill my daughter, but the twisted part of me still loved her, but I can also use her. You know, but that brings me to, again, a double kind of twist ending that I thought at first might be happening because of how Abby acted. Is that, I know the movie never talks about the character of Henry Emily, but that Abby was also an animatronic. It was Henry or Henry's apology for finding out that Garrett had been taken. Now, again, there's a whole bunch of plot holes of how you get her into the family without, you know, knowing that she's an animatronic and stuff like that. But I think that would have been interesting to play with. Again, especially if they'd done with Vanessa the cop, if they'd done more of a romantic thing, and Mike at the end realizes, like, I was about to fuck a robot. Huh. Back to your Rule 34 thing, Robert, you know, bringing it back home.
Well, look, it's another one of Mark's favorite things to talk about. You know, when they create robots that are able to service that particular biological need for men, that's one of the final pillars that will, when collapses, will be the downfall of all things human.
Right. And again, with her being a robot, I thought that would have made more sense of why I can't come with you, because she says he controls the animatronics, which would mean he controls her too. Which again, that moment where she's like forcing all of herself to try to pull that trigger would have made more sense of like the one last piece of the person who was his daughter sparked alive in there and pulled that trigger.
It would have helped. It would help justify elements of the writing of the character too, for her to be like as up and down as she was. Like, no,
exactly.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, she's just as glitchy as those animatronics were between takes.
Yeah. that's my full thing of the two just fun Easter eggs that really got me, other than like all the lore stuff, was so Matthew Lillard still in the bunny costume, the golden bunny costume, is standing above Mike. It's like, I killed your brother. I never planned on going for you, but hey, symmetry. And as he does, he's like, goodbye, Mike. He takes the knife in his hand and does this to clean it off. So for those of you who are fans of the Scream franchise, that is the killer's big move. So that was like, nice.
Gut, lift, wipe.
So yeah, I that really made me laugh. I didn't like freak out. Sex Robot Revolution. Thank you, Mark.
I didn't have to put that up there, Mark. I hope you know that.
He knows.
But no, the biggest thing for me, because this was I played the demo of the game, but this when this played, I went fucking nuts. Was the Living Tombstone's Five Nights at Freddy's song as the credit song. It was the first Five Nights at Freddy's song I ever heard. It is on my favorites playlist. I jammed and sang to the entire thing during the credits, except during the post-credit scene, because obviously it wasn't playing. But that made me so freaking happy that they used that. The only other thing I want to add is this is just funny. This is more for you, Robert, and you, Alexis, than the audience so much. But one of the people I was watching it with was like, because Foxy scats, when they're moving forward.
I thought in the game I always thought when you hear that dun 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 dun, I always thought that was Freddy doing that, but apparently according to the movie, that's Foxy who does the dun 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 dun.
And I think it might have been. It might have been Freddy in one of the games. I'd have to go back and check. I didn't fact check that one just because I was like, it doesn't really like twist the movie wrong. One of the people I was watching it with was like, oh damn, the scatting dude from Ferris Bueller's Day Off got killed and stuffed in a Freddy Fazbear suit. Because every time he goes dum dum, we kept waiting for him to go chick chicka boom boom.
That's an interesting thought.
Here, I thought you were waiting for the dueling banjos to kick in.
No, only if the sequel's in
down.
One of the animatronics go, you got a pretty mouth. That's all my notes.
I will say, I think my favorite Easter egg, mostly because it's one of the few ones that I didn't hear the audience go apeshit for, is when the alarm goes off the first time it wakes Mike out of his dream state. For a brief second, we look at the mirror, which is covered in dust, dirt, whatever, and you see someone has written in the dirt, "It's me." Which is, I never quite understood what that is, but that's a phrase that pops up a lot in the games. In the first game, there's actually just moments where the screen flashes, "It's me." And I've never understood, but it's creepy as hell. So I just loved seeing that. I was like, haha, nice touch.
I think it's supposed to be, I've heard several theories on this, but the one that makes the most sense is the children that still remember a little bit of who they are, assuming that their parents or family would still come looking for them. So it's them going, "It's me,"
Okay.
Trying to, in one small fracture of their psyche that's left. Most of us would, like if it was you, Alexis, stuck in an animatronic and, you knew I was in the building. If your full psyche was available to you, you'd be like, "The Shining's awesome. Kubrick rocks. Go fuck yourself." It's like, oh shit, Alexis is in the bear costume. Get her out. Fair play.
I mean, it does.
I'm sorry. What was the room number again?
In the actual book, it's 217. In the movie, it's 237.
It's only 237, you son of a bitch.
Stephen King wrote it first. It was 217. He wins.
Well, the crazy conspiracy theory about why he changed that.
Oh, we've heard.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who haven't, there's a conspiracy theory that The Shining is Stanley Kubrick's elaborate confession to faking the moon landing. And he changed 217 to 237 because 237,000 kilometers is the distance between the Earth and the moon.
I can hear Mark grinding his teeth on how derailed this conversation has gotten.
The real reason it happened is the people who actually own the Stanley Hotel, who they were doing all of the external
Interior
shots.
shots.
Or
External shots, right.
Yeah, the external shots.
No. That would have had to be internal because wasn't the external. I believe the externals were done at the original. I know it was either external or internal. I can't remember which one, but I know this because my dad went there a couple of times before they tore it down. It was the old. It was like the original Timberline Lodge that the Boy Scouts of America used to use.
The first one when you're just seeing the hotel itself is the actual Stanley Hotel.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, but that's still standing. The reason that they changed it to 237 was there is no room 237 in the actual Stanley Hotel. There is, however, a room 217, which is the one that King and his wife stayed in, where he got the idea for The Shining. And the owners of it were like,
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
see, that's why they changed it.
For the record, just to put a pin in the Shining discussion, I love both the book and the movie. I just accept that they're separate.
Very true.
Okay. I think we have derailed this conversation to the point that Jesse's probably even getting annoyed with us.
Those fans of you out there who want to see us fight The Shining, put a thumbs up.
All right. Is there anything else we wanted to talk about, or should we move on to the next segment?
I think we're good here. Like, again, if you like the series, if you like the franchise, it seems to be that you'll like the movie. If you're not very familiar with the franchise, this is going to be a bit of a harder watch. So
I think this
Be
first
aware.
one. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
just be aware, take that for whatever it's worth. And yeah, we're in this weird, as a minor aside, and we don't have to delve into this, but we're in this weird area now with IP mining where we're starting to get stuff, and I think we will in the future, because spoiler alert for the money, this is doing pretty well. We might be getting into this period where we're looking at stuff that was started small, blew up because of fans, and consequently the film adaptations wind up almost impenetrable to people who aren't part of the fandom. And I think that's just a thing you have to be very mindful of if you're going to be working on these movies in whatever capacity. Just try not to make these too impregnable to people who might just say, "Oh, that looks kind of interesting."
And we will be talking about that when we get to the Rotten Tomato score, because I think it's going to come down to, yes, thank you for the extra plug there, Mark. I think it's also going to come down to very similar to what we had when we reviewed the Super Mario Brothers movie, that we're going to look at the reviews and it's going to be obvious who had a Nintendo growing up and who didn't. I think we're going to see very obvious who knows the games, who's played the games, and who doesn't have the slightest idea what the fuck is going on and wants to know why any child would ever want to have their birthday party at a Showbiz Pizza.
And I can't wait for the success of this to lead us to, in 2 years, the Among Us movie. Primarily starring, who do you think they'll get for cameos in that one? Yeah, like Ludwig,
Jacksepticeye, Markiplier, Game Grumps,
Ludwig,
Ross O'Donovan,
Pokimane, Valkyrie, Corpse Husband.
PewDiePie is the villain.
No, Ross is the villain.
That's just for you, Felix, if you're watching.
Yeah, that's so again, if you have access to some of the trending stuff from like Twitch and YouTube streams, especially for the gaming subset, go back 3 years, see what was popular, and then we're gonna start mining that. So be aware, that's what's coming.
All right, gentlemen, shall we discuss the money?
As always.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
Yay, I got it right.
Woo.
Oh, and I do have to put this up. Sorry to block you out there, Dorian.
No, you're
Is
good.
that just a thing in space? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is. That's not going to stop them from trying to do it. I don't know what to tell you.
Technically, Alien was just a thing in space, so I mean,
You're not wrong.
From a certain
Okay.
point of view.
Okay, so yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's took first place with 80. This is hilarious because not only is this beating so many records, but this was released on streaming at the same time.
Well,
This
look,
is
Peacock, to the extent that Peacock's actually a streaming service.
I can't say anything because I reviewed Twisted Metal, which was on it. So
I'm just saying, like, if you look at them, if you were to go down the list of streaming services that people have, it's pretty far down on the tier list. So day and date on Peacock is not the same as day and date on Netflix or even Max.
well, I was going to say it is actually lower than Paramount Plus, but Paramount Plus just brought back Frasier, and we're not reviewing that for TV Party tonight. Don't worry, folks, but the reviews have been really good for that. So I think they may have just jumped up in the listings a little bit. But yes, I think it is important to point out that the previous record was that for most money taken in that was released simultaneously on streaming and theaters was Black Widow. But Black Widow, you had to pay $30 freaking to see because fuck you, Disney.
Premier access, baby.
So not only was Five Nights at Freddy's released simultaneously, it was free. So it didn't have to make any money in the theater.
And yet,
it did.
80 million.
Real quick, since we're talking about that, just to the audience that's still watching, because I know the money part usually people bounce out of, just because I understand this is the math part, and who likes math. But if you're not a fan of the lore and all that stuff, watch it on Peacock if you have it, or go to a friend's house who has Peacock, because I think you'll enjoy it a lot more in that case. But if you are a fan, obviously go see it in theaters. Please patronize your local theater because they need it.
And they're going to need it more because that strike currently for SAG is still going on.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, did they shoot themselves in the foot on that one.
So yeah, the film had the second best day and date opening weekend ever behind Black Widow's $83 million in 2021, the best opening weekend for a horror film in 2023, Blumhouse's best opening, topping Halloween's 76.2, and the second highest opening for a video game film behind Super Mario Brothers movie, which, yeah, good luck to anyone ever beating that.
Hey, Sonic 3 is going to have Shadow.
I still say it should also have Amy Rose.
Anyway,
not because I like Amy Rose. I just think it would make sense to have her structure-wise.
It might.
Sorry, I feel Mr. Radulich channeling through me. Going, anyways, since Sonic isn't out yet.
Yeah, but his son is super hyped for it.
So down one space in the number 2 was the Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. Because apparently, even though most of us in Kansas City are sick to frickin' death of seeing her face everywhere because she's now, sleeping with Travis Kelce, the rest of the world isn't sick of her yet. Going down from number 2, number 3, Killers of the Flower Moon, which, Robert, I believe you reviewed recently.
Mark and I have a review of that. One of the few movie reviews on Damn You Hollywood with a lower runtime than the film.
It's a miracle. Number 4, opening this weekend After Death. Number 5, went down a little too far there. Going from number 3 to number 5 was The Exorcist Believer, which is also going to streaming very quickly and rightfully so.
Yep.
Number 4, number 6, the Paw Patrol movie. Do we even know anyone who has kids who went to go see that?
I believe my aunt did.
A couple of my godchildren went to see it, but they're like 4.
Yeah, like I think my aunt did because she has partial custody of a 4-year-old, and that's a far too long.
Well, I have 13 godchildren, so I had to go. Wait, how old are they? Yeah, no. The back end ones did.
All right, for number 5 to number 7 was the 30th anniversary re-release of The Nightmare Before Christmas. Congratulations, Mr. Pumpkin King. Number 8, opening weekend for Freelance. Number 6 to number 9, Saw X/Saw 10. Number 7 to number 10, The Creator. Rising up from number 17 to number 11 was Anatomy of a Fall.
That got its wide release. You can see the number of theaters that it increased in.
Yeah, 316%. Number 9 to number 12, The Blind. Number 8 to number 13, A Haunting in Venice. How is that still in theaters?
It just literally last night or yesterday went to streaming.
That's what I thought.
It's been doing pretty well, actually, at least review-wise.
Because there are certain places that understand that a longer theatrical run is not the end of the world.
Only for number 10 and number 14, The Nun 2, number 11 and number 15. We also had the 30th anniversary re-release of Hocus Pocus. I completely forgot that Hocus Pocus and Nightmare Before Christmas were released in the same year.
Thank you, Disney, for trying to cover that up, even though I know they're both from you.
Oh, no. That's Touchstone Pictures, remember? Wink,
Oh,
wink.
yeah. But if you look up and when it says Nightmare Before Christmas, it does say Walt Disney Pictures. They just changed it when they realized that it was actually going to be good. They started it with Touchstone and then went, this is going to suck. It's not going to get any money. When it finally got money, they were like, Walt Disney Pictures presents Tim Burton's A Nightmare Before Christmas. Fuck you, Henry Selick.
Yes, never mind the people who actually made the stupid movie.
Hey, you want to diss on Hocus Pocus? You can do that all day.
No. That's just
Robert, you don't understand. When I said congratulations, Pumpkin King, I wasn't trying to be, cute or anything. That is literally Dorian's nickname.
Since junior high.
When I say, never mind that we're ignoring the people who actually made the stupid movie. I don't mean the movie's stupid. I just mean like the politics around it. Like, can we actually talk about the actual movie here? Not everyone and their dog trying to take credit for it, apart from the people who actually made the darn thing.
Fair play. We were about to have like a MMA style fight here. Robert versus Dorian on Nightmare Before Christmas.
Robert, at Monday night at Dorian's birthday party, they held spooky music bingo, where they would play the first 30 seconds of a song, and then you had to mark down your bingo card. When they started playing This Is Halloween, Dorian, what was it you said to your guests?
At the top, well, actually, it wasn't just because this is at a restaurant called The Wild Bar and Grill, and for those of you who are in the Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas area, check them out. Like I said, The Wild Bar and Grill. It's more of a face-themed one, but it's really awesome. Check them out. Yes, that is a shameless plug. And they're not paying me for it. But yes, at the top of my lungs, when they started singing or they started playing This Is Halloween, I was like, anyone who doesn't get this has to leave now. Like immediately, and I'm excommunicating you.
Number 16 was The Holdovers, which I've heard a lot of good things about. I'm actually I like Alexander Payne's movies, so I'm interested to see that.
I'm actually going to go see it next week. So Alexis, Robert, or anyone who's listening, if you're interested in getting a review of it, if you haven't already seen it, DM me and I'll be happy to share that review with you. And it will not be an hour and a half.
I need to double check the schedule. I don't know what we've got for the next batch of Damn You Hollywoods. I still need to find time to put the Hell of a Boss review in. Falling from number 12 to number 17, The Equalizer Part 3. Opening at number 18, Priscilla. The only Elvis movie to not actually contain any Elvis music because the rights holders told Miss Sofia Coppola not a chance in hell.
Well, yeah, because Elvis doesn't look great in this movie. He's kind of a dick. Reality.
Heaven forbid we paint real people as real people.
Yeah.
I said Elvis was a dick. Come at me.
Look, man. My stance on this goes as follows. I love his music. Was he, as a person, never met him, couldn't tell you. Most people who have his issues are not the best people to be around.
Look, we gave a favorable review to the Baz Luhrmann Elvis movie, and we openly said that Austin Butler very much so deserved the Oscar nomination that he got.
Yeah, more or less.
He didn't deserve to beat Brendan Fraser, but he deserved the nomination. Looking forward to seeing him in Dune 2. Anyways, from number 13 to number 19, we have Dix, the musical, and number 16 to number 20 was Oppenheimer, which, again, we also reviewed here on the network and also gave a very positive review to.
Apparently, we'll be getting another wide re-release. They're trying to get it to hit the billion mark.
I'm really actually shocked, though, that Oppenheimer, and again, I know we're not going, past 20 because that's the rules. But I'm really shocked, albeit not by much, that Oppenheimer beat Barbie. I would have assumed Barbie would have just blown Oppenheimer, especially with, people going back to see it. Because again, not to get into a rabbit hole here, I love Chris Nolan stuff most of the time, but Jesus, sometimes. Oh, sorry, I guess I should have waited 30 seconds. Barbie did beat Oppenheimer
Worldwide, yes.
Yeah.
Mark,
Sorry, it took me
part out of me being an idiot.
Sorry, it took me a second to switch the tabs. But yes, Barbie is still sitting in number 1 worldwide. Super Mario Brothers movie. Robert, didn't we have a bet going on whether or not we thought Barbie would beat the Mario Brothers movie?
For a while it was we were watching. I think where we ultimately landed, Mark and I did, was it'll get past it, not by a whole lot, and that's kind of where we landed. It's the number 1 movie, but it didn't blow it out of the water.
I'm still waiting for next year's Oscars, where it's going to be Best Supporting Actor, and we're going to go from Robert Downey Jr. giving an amazing emotional performance in Oppenheimer, and the clip that they're going to use for Ryan Gosling is going to be him singing "I'm Just Ken." I just cannot wait for that whiplash.
That's assuming Ryan Gosling doesn't get run over by something between now and then.
He'll still get nominated, even if he has been run over by something.
Yeah, but
Heath Ledger, anyone?
No, but if he gets run over, he's going to win. If he doesn't, he's going to lose, because Robert Downey Jr. deserves every bit of that Oscar.
Okay, fair enough. And yes, number 3, Oppenheimer. Number 4, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Kind of depressing that we don't have a Marvel movie this year that's going to cross that, because we all know the Marvels ain't hitting that. Number 5, Fast X.
Oh, come on. You don't have faith in that movie? They shot 3 times with a $300 million budget at this point almost. And
look, I want to have faith in the Marvels, okay? I love Captain Marvel. I love Miss Marvel. And I think they officially confirmed that the third one is going by Photon.
Yep.
At least I've seen... what is it? There's a clothing line website called Her Universe that has deals with Disney and a bunch of others.
I'm 90% sure the toys list her as Photon.
Yeah. Well, anyways, they're selling these black and white jackets with the logo on it, and it says Photon jackets. So
the toys always speak the truth. And
no, you're right.
It's no, that movie's gonna bomb so hard. They're desperately trying to get out in front of the bad PR. That thing.
The number one problem is they should have been advertising this thing a lot sooner. It's like, wow, you guys are just now doing the TV commercials and the YouTube commercials and the freaking, tortilla chip tie-in.
I think they only did they recently get their was it this one that got its a bit like weird letter from the union that says they can promote it, or am I thinking of something else?
Dorian, what did I say that's making you laugh so hard?
The damn tortilla chip. Sorry, for some reason that just caught me. It's really fun. It's like TV commercials, YouTube commercials, tortilla chips. God damn it! The 3 biggest markets, obviously.
I think they still weren't sure they were going to go on this date until very recently. That movie's been bumped around a lot too. So.
Well, wait. Doesn't Pepsi also own Frito-Lay?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, my tortilla chip thing works because Pepsi would. Yeah, so it's like soda chips.
It wasn't
Pepsi
so much
technically Pepsi, one of the buyers for Disney in the near future.
It wasn't so much that had a problem with it. Was just TV commercials, YouTube commercials, tortilla chips.
Because throwing Ms. Marvel's face on a bag of Tostitos isn't going to ruffle any feathers.
Any hoodle.
Number 5, Fast X. Number 6,
Fast
Spider-Man.
X, a crime against all things. Not just a terrible movie, but if your movie can gross $700 million at the box office and still be a financial loser, you have failed miserably at everything.
Okay, number 6, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. That just came on to Netflix recently, so it just came to streaming. Number 7, The Little Mermaid.
Losing money.
Aren't all live-action Disney adaptations?
No. Several of them made a lot of money.
No. I'm saying now they are. I think I pray that the audiences have finally realized, wow, this is shit. and they're going to stop giving them money for this crap.
Well,
Give
considering that,
give us the live action version of The Great Mouse Detective. That'll make money.
You know what? You're not wrong. Well, here's the only thing I want out of that. You have to digitally do Vincent Price's voice, still doing all the lines.
Oh yeah,
for Radigan. You can't recast that.
Well,
considering
there's only one way you could, because there's only one actor who does a really pitch perfect Vincent Price impersonation.
Oh,
Maurice LaMarche.
Yeah,
that's true.
But again, with what Robert's saying, it would be great to get Maurice LaMarche to do like kind of the foundation and some of the cadence, and then get Victoria Price's permission to do AI of his voice to recreate those lines against, the new actors that are going to be re-saying, lines and different lines from the original, and then do it. But yeah, give us a live action thing. Disney, I know you're probably not watching, but just in case you are, live action remake of Great Mouse Detective and Black Cauldron. Trust me,
no.
Make money.
Hang on. I'm with you on Great Mouse Detective. Stay away from Black Cauldron for a little bit still. Look, if you're gonna do that movie, just do all 5 books. Like let's actually do that properly, not just try to mash 2 of them together and do a one of.
You know what? I forgot about that there was a full book series. My apologies. I was just looking at the singular Disney movie.
No, that's fine. I really like the Chronicles of Prydain, and familiarity with that IP means I can't enjoy that movie despite some of the stuff in it that's really good. Because
John Hurt.
Oh, he's great. Love that.
Hey, I've still been pushing for a Sword in the Stone live action remake.
That would be nice.
See, I want that because could you imagine how amazing the Wizard's Duel would look with modern day technology?
Yeah, in that case, let your CGI flag fly.
Yeah,
there's that one. I would really like live action Rescuers. Give me both of those.
Fuck yeah.
I could be okay with that.
Rescuers and Rescuers Down Under, yes.
Oh, I love Rescuers Down Under, man. Like, here's the thing about that one. Like, don't do that one CGI'd as much as possible. Like, let's actually do big, expansive, beautiful cinematography in a landscape that deserves it. So.
Oh, absolutely.
And tell you what, audience watching, in the comments below, obviously like and subscribe to this channel. We do a whole bunch of fun stuff. But
please
leave us a comment if you'd like to see us 3 or a couple other people that aren't with us tonight do a breakdown of Disney movies we'd actually like to see turned into live action remakes. And
just to your note that they're all going to start losing money. They just pushed Snow White to 2025.
Did you see the dwarves?
Here's my hunch on that. There's been so much pushback from how terrible they looked in the set photos they released that they decided to say screw it and CGI over them. And we're getting like the first couple of passes at it. That's the only explanation. There's no way that's film. That is not final release ready material. There's no way.
So you're saying that we're getting a Twilight Baby version of this. Gotcha.
That's my hunch. And no, it's still gonna suck. If they can't fix it, they might just have to can it. And
I just want to know why they can't cast actual little people, actual dwarves.
I don't know.
I mean, they have been okay. They have been
because originally it wasn't dwarves. Like when they talked about when they were gonna remake, it's like no, they're not dwarves. They're just forest spirit people, and everyone collectively felt their head explode.
Look, I'm not one to jump on the rock and say rights for blah 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 just because I don't want to alienate any of our listeners. Last time I did that, I suggested making Mr. Fantastic black, and the result was really ugly. That was on one of the Bleeding Edge podcasts, but
man, you especially to that group, you couldn't do that.
No, but. Okay, I hate saying little people or dwarves because again, I know that those are technically the right terms, but when I hear little people, I think, oh, you're just a little person. When I hear dwarves, I think the Snow White. But there are so many.
You don't think axe wielding awesome people? No one tosses a dwarf.
There are so many dwarf actors out there who are really good, and I'm not just talking, Peter Dinklage and Warwick Davis. I'm talking so many more than that who really deserve this chance. He's dead. Vern Troyer
a
died.
few years.
Yeah, I know he
died
did, but I was just like, we're talking about actors of the smaller persuasion.
There's a stand-up comedian, actually. His name's Brad Williams, I think.
I've
He
seen
is
some of his stuff.
Yeah, I love him. He's a dwarf comedian. He is funny as hell, and he does this great bit complaining about the Charlize Theron, Snow White, and the Huntsman.
Oh yeah,
And
because they took full actors and CGI'd them down.
Yeah, one of the last performances of Bob Hoskins, believe it or
Yeah.
not, and just talked about how insulting it was. It's like, you don't think a dwarf could play a dwarf?
And sorry,
Not a lot of,
this
there's
is-
not a lot of roles for us to begin with, and now you're taking away the ones that are explicitly dwarves.
Well,
It's like, what do you want me to do? I can do the walk.
Well, sorry, since this whole show's about movies anyways, every time Alexis says dwarf, all I hear is Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law. Oh, this must be Adler's dwarf. Midget? You are insulting the ideals of foreshortened people.
Please, they prefer to be called the living impaired.
New from George A. Romero from Beyond the Grave, The Living Impaired.
Title the living impaired as they and the ACLU lawyer get bold enough to represent their case before the Supreme Court.
You know what? I could actually see like a book or a movie completely tongue-in-cheek called The Living Impaired.
Mark, if you're still watching, remember that movie idea we've been throwing around? We got a new one.
Yeah, next on our list at number 8, a movie that apparently, if you believe clickbaity headlines, actually scared President of the United States, who is now afraid of AI because of this movie. To which I say, who let him speak publicly without his medication? But yeah, hey, I said that about Trump more than once too.
I know. I'm well aware. But yes, number 8, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Number 9, Elemental. I'm glad to see that actually.
Finally!
Yeah, it's like we're really glad to see that one. We gave that a very favorable review. The international sales greatly added to it. That is a really good Pixar film. Number 10, Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania, aka who the hell, decided to use the backup drive for the CGI on that?
The fentanyl corpse of this year's box office, just hanging out at number 10 and not being moved.
And also, there's new news on that going forward. Obviously, Ant-Man the Quantumania has Kang, the Conqueror. Due to the actor's apparent arrests, it looks like they'll be moving forward with Doctor Doom. Is the semi-confirmed rumor at this time, not 100% confirmed.
Well, if you don't mind delving into the rumor zone here, and that's all we're doing.
We have nothing else to go on.
True. So there's an article that came out earlier today from Variety, which I think very lowly of, but it's talking about the problems of the MCU right now and how people aren't going to see the movies, and the Marvels is about to bomb. It's tracking very poorly, and one of the things that came out about that is someone who's apparently seen the finale of Loki season 2 is of the opinion that they can't do anything with Kang after this, so they have to pivot somehow. And
admittedly, I know we will be reviewing Loki here soon, but I am horribly behind on it. I had to take a little time to catch up on the Fall of the House of Usher for our other show. So,
and for the record, congratulations, you arrived at the logical conclusion we all arrived at a long time ago. If we're doing this, Doctor Doom makes the most sense. He's easily accessible. He can mess with a lot of different people, and we don't have to. And there's a built-in reason for why he's still out and about every time. You might foil
because
his
he's
plans.
A freaking dictator.
You might foil his plans, but he has diplomatic immunity, so up yours.
Has just been revoked.
Well, no, we don't have Donald Glover here. We don't have Danny Glover here to do it.
We don't know that yet. Movie hasn't been cast.
Now, I actually called for
Danny
Dr.
Glover
Doom to be
as Dr. Doom going diplomatic immunity would be the height of hilarity. I'm not saying they should do it, but it would be funny.
I actually called for Dr. Doom to be cast a while ago when they were still before Wakanda Forever came out, but when we had heard that Namor had been cast, there's a comic book called Rise of the Black Panther, also known as The Tale of the Two Kings, in which, short version, Doctor Doom tries to instigate a war between Wakanda and Atlantis so he can get his hands on their natural resources. Namor and T'Challa realize they've been set up and they go kick Doctor Doom's ass. Great book. So even with the passing of Chadwick Boseman, when I heard that they were casting Namor for Wakanda Forever, I genuinely thought this was what we were going to get. And I still say that could have worked even with Shuri taking on her lead role as she did. So I've been fighting for a while to see Doctor Doom in there. I'm sorry, what'd you say, Robert?
To the extent that anything with Shuri works, and that's an open question.
Go check out our review. Oh my God, that review is one of our longest. That took forever. Yeah.
But
I think that one's tied up right there with the Falcon and Winter Soldier, as in we're never going to see the light of day again.
No, I'm with you. Like, that would have been a great time to introduce him. There's a lot of very talented actors that can play Doctor Doom. And, for all the faults that Marvel had, that, the MCU is going through, I still don't think they've really fallen down on casting, except maybe in hindsight with Brie Larson. And again,
and the Elementals.
You mean the Eternals?
Oh, right. Sorry, I was looking at the Freudian slip. I was reading the list.
It's still Disney. It counts.
My hunch there is, like, even a bunch of the casting in Eternals is okay.
With the exception of the two leads.
The decision to have them play the roles that they, like, the decision to have those characters interact the way they did after that casting was a wild misstep. That still might have been able to work. But again, they still haven't really fallen down casting wise, and you can find somebody to play Victor Von Doom.
Cillian Murphy.
I'm down for that. He's great.
I would love to see Cillian Murphy play Victor Von Doom. I think he would be perfect.
Yeah, he'd be really good. Part of the problem though is, like, you need him to have the right chemistry with Reed Richards, and we don't know who they're casting there yet. So,
well, yeah, that's been juggled up so many times. At least thank God that. Oh my God, who did they say for a while was going to be playing Reed Richards? Guy who played Kylo Ren.
Yeah, Adam Driver. No,
Adam Driver. I think it's like, oh, thank God that rumor turned out to be false. Okay, what do you say we actually get back to the list? Number 11, John Wick, Chapter 4. Number 12, Transformers, Rise of the Beast. Number 13, Meg 2, The Trench. And there, number 14, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Another foot in the grave for Disney.
Everybody point and laugh.
Number 15, Creed 3. Number 16, The Flash. Number 17, The Nun 2. Number 18, Sound of Freedom. Number 19, Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. I am actually glad to see that one still hanging on. That is one of my favorite movies of the year. And number 20, this woman will never go away, Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour.
She will probably surpass the Dungeons and Dragons movie next week.
You know she's officially a billionaire?
I don't care.
Congrats, you like your music.
Good for
her. And
yeah,
there's Five Nights at Freddy's down at number 26. After the Ninja Turtles movie, Scream 6, and Paw Patrol, but above Evil Dead Rise and Shazam. Well, beating Shazam Fury of the Gods is not exactly not exactly something you want to brag about.
Low bar.
Very low bar. Shall we move on to Rotten Tomatoes, gentlemen?
If there's anything else with the money, I think we're good.
Did I miss any of the links?
Nope.
Okay.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
All right. Right now, wow, that is one hell of a divide. 28% on the tomato meter, 88% audience score.
This is one of those movies that if you are a fan, again, I think you liked it. If you think about the movie even a little bit, it kind of falls apart.
Well, see, this is the problem. This is why this show, what we're doing right here, no matter who's on it, is actually a lot better. Is because a lot of critics, and apparently Cleo and or Eddie agrees with me. Let me finish the sentence first. Jeez. Is most critics have never made a film, have never tried to adapt something. They just have a degree in film studies or something like that, which is not a bad degree to have. But the problem is they're trying to put it together by craft and how a movie should be based on good movies in the past. At the end of the day, the critic review honestly doesn't matter a lot. If the audience loves it, that's who's paying the bills. Again, what we do here, it's like, as much crap as Robert has gotten, and sometimes unfairly, for just hating everything.
Usually fairly.
Well, okay, fair. But again, at the same time, that's a critique, and it doesn't matter. If the audience is still watching, then, they obviously like what you do. At the end of the day, it really, and I'm sorry, I keep saying at the end of the day, but it's true, if the audience going to see it, yeah, then it doesn't matter, what highbrow critic is like, this movie was absolute trash, and it's not even cinema. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, what we do is like, I know I make movies. Alexis has been on movie sets before. Robert, I don't know if you've been on any before, but like, we do our best to make the best story we can, and we hope the audience enjoys it. So I knew the critic review was going to be low as hell on this, but I was thinking 85, so I'm glad I was wrong on the audience score.
Well, the critic consensus is loaded with Easter eggs. Five Nights at Freddy's may be fun to watch for fans of the game, but most viewers of any other persuasion will find this adaptation muddled and decidedly unscary.
And I mean, again, that does raise up some of the things that we mentioned, and
I just gotta say it. I freaking love this poster with Mr. Cupcake.
That's
the character's name, Mr. Cupcake.
I believe you.
There's several of my friends. They're like, they made a plushie of that, right? I'm sure they did.
You have no idea. There's so many You know what? Actually, I do kind of laugh at how in the scenes where you see all the merchandise on the walls and you see the plushies, those are exactly the way the plushies are seen in the game. So it's like, they even got that detail right. It's nice. It's a nice touch. All right. So Perry Nemiroff of YouTube, top critic, a so-so adaptation that's entertaining enough, but a must-see for the expertly crafted animatronics.
That's fair.
Yeah, again, we said the animatronics were,
and
probably the best part of this movie.
Again, we have a review there that wound up with a score of 3 out of 5. But 3 out of 5 leaning positive, which I can understand that, especially if you're a fan of the franchise. It's possible to still enjoy it, still think about this critically, and still arrive at a position that is fair, erring on the side of positive. I don't think that's a bad way to approach film review.
Look at this review from Bob Grimm of Reno News and Review. The movie will make you want to quit movies about video games and perhaps video games altogether. You're not a gamer, are you, Mr. Grimm?
Probably not. This is probably not a guy who, again, I'm fine with you saying the movie has problems. It does. You're extrapolating way too much there.
Okay, let's see here. Trying to look for some of our favorites here. Benny Morris, it's better in the dark. That's what she said. With its mix of not scary enough horror and too extensive backstory, this ends up feeling more like franchise maintenance than entertainment. It's a film that exists to further the brand rather than be enjoyable in its own right.
I think that's a bit too far. Like the thrust of what's being said there about how this feels more like a generalized entry and into the franchise to kind of keep it going rather than something independent of it is, I think there's merit to that. Again, if you don't know the games and the lore and whatnot, there's not a lot here. I shouldn't say there's not a lot. There's a lot less here for you. And that's also pretty clearly a choice. And whether or not that's a good choice, your mileage will vary, but I don't think it's an accident, and I think it's a bit overly cynical to say it's nothing other than again, brand maintenance. That's a bridge too far for me in the criticism of the movie.
I do kind of like this. Candace McMillan from the Seattle Refined. Five Nights at Freddy's is a yawn and a half. Sorry, Freddy. Back to the stage for you.
Moderate props for wordplay there, I suppose.
All right, one of my favorites, Doug Walker, Channel Awesome. Almost worth a recommendation, but when a film about animatronics killing has very little animatronics killing, many won't get their money's worth. Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah.
And that's a fair criticism of this movie.
Okay, this one's weird. Donald Clark from the Irish Times. Hutcherson is admirably committed to the filmmaker's apparent desire to make something miserable of a scenario that, as one Oscar-winning actor has shown, is more accommodating of psychedelic comedy.
Didn't Nicolas Cage win an Oscar at one point?
He did.
Yeah.
So they're talking Willy's Wonderland.
This is a guy making a way too wordy, veiled reference to another movie. And don't get me wrong, I prefer Willy's Wonderland, but
I don't.
And that's fair. Again, that's very fair.
So I'm not trying to start a fight here.
Thank you, Shay.
Bam! Your face is 8.
I tend to think that the distinction between Willy's Wonderland and Five Nights at Freddy's for fans is largely going to come down to just personal preference. And I tended to enjoy Willy's Wonderland, and it's slightly zanier. Like
Willy's Wonderland storyline is more clean.
Yeah,
I will definitely give it that, and I will take the knee on that one.
I will say though, Five Nights at Freddy's actors were a lot better. I am still convinced that the second lead actress, the one who plays the slut, I guess, was told she was making a porno and nobody bothered to correct her.
She thought she was making a porno and no one bothered to correct her. It's like, views.
Yeah.
Everyone other than Nicolas Cage in that movie is just floundering around on the acting department.
Yeah, admittedly, Nicolas Cage is hilarious, and it's so funny that we would argue it's one of his best movies, and he doesn't talk. But none of the teenage actors are saving this on their resume.
Yeah. That you watch that movie for the zany, the kind of comedic element of what's going on, and for the very interesting acting that Nick Cage does without saying a line of dialogue, because there's the ability to from an actor to convey stuff to convey like complex emotions, even in some respects, without saying a word. There's a lot of actors that struggle with that. There's a lot of actors that, I've said this before about like actors who struggle with prosthetic makeup or whatnot. There's a bunch that if you take their eyes away from them, they're completely lost. And it's kind of a lost art for a lot of actors to use their whole body to convey stuff. And
didn't we say that about Ty Sheridan in X-Men Dark Phoenix?
I said that about not just Ty Sheridan in Dark Phoenix. I said that about James Marsden in the original X-Men movies. And Marsden's a good actor, but you
cover those eyes up and you lose 3/4 of.
And he just wasn't able to compensate us. And there was another one.
Marsden was douchey enough for that role, because Cyclops has been and always shall be a little bit of a douche.
Has Cyclops ever been anyone's favorite character of the X-Men?
I actually know 5 people personally that it is.
Depends on which era of Cyclops we're talking about. A handful of years ago, when he was doing the the mutant martyr line, when he was when he was kind of like doing the fine, I'll be the evil mutant so all of you can have one to hate bit, like that actually worked for him as a character, and at that time he was among the more interesting members of that cast. But the same is true of a lot of guys who struggle with even just like heavy makeup on them. They don't know how to act with it and through it, and it shows.
We act that again, going back to Nicolas Cage. We talked about that in the Renfield movie. We talked about the scenes where you have Dracula recovering and rebuilding himself. You have scenes of Nick Cage covered almost head to toe with prosthetics, and yet he is still able to give a commanding performance through all of that. So Roger Moore, Movie Nation, he shows up more frequently here than I think you would like. I hate singling out actors because bad movies are rarely their fault, but Hutcherson's terrible performance is right at home in this stuffed dog of a thriller.
No, and I'm sorry. First of all, dead James Bond.
I just don't get stuffed dog. Does he think Freddy's a dog?
I don't. I have no idea. My issue with it.
Yeah, I was like, or is this a term I'm just not familiar with?
I've never heard of it.
I have spent time personally with people who have been the older brother that has to take care of the younger sibling. And whereas Hutcherson's performance isn't nail on realistic perfection, he does show a lot of that older, annoyed brother of, listen, I got shit to do. I can't deal with you right now, without becoming abusive or such. So again, I apologize, Mr. Moore, but I have to disagree with you. I think Hutcherson does a very good job with the character he's given.
I think it would be more accurate to say that the character is profoundly underwritten in terms of what they were trying to get Hutcherson to do. And whether or not he could have risen to the challenge of a better character, we'll never know at this point because they didn't give us that. So,
Until Five Nights at Freddy's 3 when he returns.
Yeah.
Robert, look who I found.
I see him. Hey, Kevin.
Kevin Carr, fat guys at the movies, our arch nemesis. It has a great look and feels true to the game, but it's a bit overwritten to add a story to otherwise mundane gameplay.
I hate agreeing with him more than I would like to admit. But yeah, again, this is a world. The Five Nights at Freddy's stuff has very deep lore, but there's not a lot of story to the games, and that should provide you with more room to play. But Mark was also fond of saying of The Force Awakens that don't think of this as a movie. Think of this as more like a rebranding launch. They have to tell people it's okay to come back. And I think I said earlier that I think it's unfair to pretend that Five Nights at Freddy's is just brand maintenance. I also think it's a bit foolish to pretend that there isn't brand awareness that goes into a movie like this. And that plays a part.
All right, Michael Phillips, Chicago Tribune, top critic. The premise, meantime, of Five Nights at Freddy's is entirely about the cruelty and very likely would have made more sense as a straight-up R-rated splatterfest.
Okay, hang on. In a vacuum, he's right. Let's be very clear about that. If you were to give me the premise of this movie and say, how are we going with this? That's the direction I would go. When you're adapting something that has a younger fan base, you have to consider the market and the fan base, and that's kind of how we wound up where we did. I think another one of those instances where I think it's a little bit too stuff existing in a vacuum to say this should have been and then give us a completely different movie. That doesn't quite track for me.
Yeah, I'll admit if I didn't know about the fan base, I would have loved to see an R-rated splatter horror fest of this because I'm just sick in the head.
I'd love it too.
I think if they had mixed a mystery / splatter fest, like We Can't Get Out, make Freddy Fazbear's a little bigger. You can still use the claustrophobia thing. We've seen Alien do it with a large ship.
Yeah, this
could have worked too. Of what the hell is going on? You could still keep Lillard as Afton / purple guy. It still would have worked.
Well, you mentioned one of the other ones is set in an abandoned shopping mall, right?
Well, it's not an abandoned shopping mall. It's a shopping mall that has been turned into a megaplex with that is completely filled with activities surrounding
I think I see where Robert's going. You could have gone Dawn of the Dead with it almost too.
Yeah, there's a lot of old malls that you could easily set this in a rundown mall, have it be you could even have it be one of the anchor stores that was in this mall, and that's where all the crazy stuff emanates from. But you could almost do let the security guard avoid some of the animatronics throughout the rest of the mall, but it gets closer and closer to the place it all emanates from, so we can have this slowly building claustrophobia.
I think if you made Lillard the security guard, made him a little off-putting, but you could still have your splatterfest of some of the kids getting killed off, or like, teenagers, whatever. Again, this goes back to the trilogy of books I keep talking about.
Oh yeah,
But
there's always disposable teenagers around. Throw them in there.
Right, Afton could still be the villain, but it's like the animatronics are trying to scare the kids out because they've figured out who Afton is.
Yeah.
And the ones that get killed are always near Afton. They're not near anyone else.
Yeah, I go for that.
I have to read this from Bilge Iberi, New York Magazine / Vulture, top critic. The kind of hollowed out exercise in atrociousness that pretty much forces you to mull other things, be they what you're having for dinner, the decline of American community, or the heat death of the universe.
Okay. Allow me to have a go at this.
How high were you when you wrote your review?
Yeah, it's like I am hoping Rotten Tomatoes just took the wrong sentence.
Here's what happens with situations like this. You didn't like the movie, which is not a crime. Again, there's plenty of things to criticize. But rather than apply a critical lens to it and critical thinking, you decided to try and show off your wordiness and go nuclear on it. And it's nothing but self-aggrandizing. That's nothing but you basically whacking yourself off with your own wordplay. And frankly, considering the outlets you write for, that tracks more than you'd like to admit.
Okay, Russ Simmons from KKFI-FM, our hometown in Kansas City. I want to say our, I mean me and Dorian. Five Nights at Freddy's is very, very silly, but a mildly entertaining seasonal creep fest.
Not unfair.
I could go with that.
Again, I think I said this during my craft reviews. Like, I would put this with Coraline and Paranorman. I'm not saying they're as good as, but there's something you could put on for younger kids and not horrifically worry that it's like, well, now I'm going to have to, go bankrupt with therapy bills. Because I just decided, I got drunk and decided to show my 12-year-old Hellraiser.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
You
gotta grow up sometime, kid. Get daddy a beer.
Looking for some more of our frequent contributors, whether they want to be or not. I like this David Crow, Den of Geek. One night is too many. But I've seen that at least 3 other times now, so I think that joke is officially played out. Yeah,
that would be the theoretically clever wordplay that a bunch of these more hackish writers would latch onto in terms of, well, what can we say about how can we twist the premise and the thing into negative reviews? And
if you don't like it and you want to be like poppy about it, it's like, I'm going to need 5 nights to get over this movie. Like, yeah, there's your joke. Go for, I mean, it's cheap, but go for it.
And I'm seeing a lot of reviews basically saying, if you're a fan of the games, you'll like it. And if not, you're not going to like it. And I think that is what it really does boil down to.
It's true.
Oh, yeah. And I think this one was a world-building one to get fans that were already fans of the lore and the story involved, so that when the next one comes out, those people already they might bring their friends that don't know about it to this one. Just get them involved. But when Five Nights at Freddy's 2 comes out, like the movie version, obviously, maybe we can have a more in-depth, more mysterious, again, if it's supposed to follow the second game prequel mystery style story, even though we know what the mystery is, but we want to know how it's going to play out.
Yeah.
So this one might have just been hey, everyone had fun? Cool. Now that you're all in this, now we can get fun.
And here's our proof of concept, basically.
Yeah.
All right. Well, like I said, I didn't see any more of our usual, so I think I'm just going to cut it off there.
That works.
But yeah, I think the general consensus is, if you're a fan of the games or something like that, if you know the games, the lore, you're probably going to enjoy this. It is aimed at younger crowds, and we are hoping that, because we know we're getting sequels. We know they're coming. And hopefully they will up the scare factors.
We talked a little bit about about the movie's take, but what was the budget on this thing?
Hang on. I got it up on Wikipedia here.
So do I. Only a budget of $20 million, and as of recording, the box office worldwide we touched on it earlier, is 149. Yeah, we're getting sequels.
Mm-hmm.
More than one.
And that's fine. That's fine. It's clearly what the fans want.
Hey, look, make an appropriately budgeted movie, and when it hits, you score big. This didn't need a lot of money.
And not every. Thank you, Kirsten.
Compliments are always appreciated.
Absolutely.
Hopefully she was here for when I mentioned my godchildren, because that will be important to her. Yeah, that'll get me in trouble. One of the two. Moving on. But no, sorry. What I was going to say was, there's no bad thing in making a movie that isn't some intellectual, walk up Everest. Movies are supposed to be escapism. They're supposed to be fun. That's why people like me end up making movies, is that we want to tell those stories that are going to make people happy. But, it doesn't mean that every movie, again, has to be this, like, the Academy Award nominees for Best Picture, Five Nights at Freddy's. That'd be awesome if it happened, but it's never going to be like that. There are movies that, again, are supposed to challenge us mentally, and there's some that we're supposed to kick back and enjoy. Because that's the joy of storytelling.
All right. Well, what do you say we go ahead and move on to plugs then?
Sounds good.
All right. Dorian, you are the contributing guest who I just added into the network chat. God save your soul. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about...
That was lost years ago, but I appreciate that.
Why don't you go ahead and tell us what you're working on right now?
Well, again, at Frankie Pictures, as you can see right next to me, by the way, sorry, still working that out. Usually in front, behind the camera, which is a good segue into Frankie Pictures offers an extensive line of whatever you need filmed, photographed, we can do it. Just got done filming and doing photography for a wedding. We do industrial commercials. If you have a small business that's trying to get off the ground, hit us up. We can do a small commercial for you that we done at a professional level for what is it my grandpa Richard used to say, 4-star professional quality at 2-star prices. So we are obviously always welcome to that. Hit us up on Instagram or Facebook. Find us on either. Instagram's a little easier. We also are starting to work more with small bands here in the city. If you got a band that you're trying to get off the ground, get yourself more gigs at bars and venues around here, hit us up. We're more than happy to help you with that. Oh crap, that'll either mean I am in trouble or it's going to be funny. So in case this is the last time I'm on this show,
I'll go dig up your corpse later.
Right. Frankenstein that shit back to life. As I know at this moment, the next time I will be on this show, for those of you who are interested, W2W Network does a thing called On Trial on November 19th. I will be the defense attorney for what in my opinion, is a great horror classic, even though the spooky season is over for you normies. I will be defending the classic 1999 Tim Burton Sleepy Hollow. So do come back for that. I've got a whole bunch of stuff ready. I don't know who my prosecutor is yet, so that'll be fun.
Usually Mark.
Oh, so I'm going up against the boss. Great. That'll be fun. But anyways, yeah, so check back in for that. And again, hit us up on Frankie Pictures. We'd love to work with you.
All right, Mr. Winfree.
Okay. I believe the next Damn You Hollywood that we have is next week. Not next week. Next week we have off. Next week will be a comic strip in place of Damn You Hollywood. That will be, I believe, Mark and Jesse. It's usually Mark and Jesse. They will be talking about the comic strip for Two Guns, which got an adaptation. I want to say that was Denzel Washington and Mark Wahlberg.
It's kind of funny that it's usually those two, because I'm the one that invented that show.
You are, and we're grateful for it. There will also be the TV party next week for Gen V, so tune in for that.
I'm just going to be blunt here. I don't have anyone on that show yet. I need victims.
What time? Hit me up later and find out what day it is, because I'm actually going to be watching it. So
the 8th, that's Wednesday at 8 p.m.
Let me check the calendar after we're done with this.
All right, thank you.
I would consider it, but I'm unavailable next Wednesday. So 2 weeks. On November 13th, Damn You Hollywood, me and Mark, and anybody else on that one? Yeah, Alexis will be there. We will be talking about the Marvels. So be ready for that. In the interim, you can find me over at 411mania.com covering mixed martial arts and professional wrestling. MLW stuff on Thursday, WWE SmackDown on Friday, and UFC events on Saturdays. If you want a more in-depth look week to week at the state of the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts, I welcome you to listen to the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. I record that Sunday evenings. It goes live Monday morning early, so give that a listen. This week is a preview of the upcoming Fight Night event, which will be this Saturday that I'll be covering, and my thoughts on the boxing bout between Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou and the fallout from that, as that happened, and other news of the week. So every week I'm over there. Give that a listen wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find me over there. So thank you very much for that. And anything else? No, that's it for me. So again, have next week off. Back in 2 weeks for the Marvels. Hope you'll all be back for that one.
You bringing your own noose for that?
I haven't decided which one. I could go with my formal one.
You have a formal noose?
Yeah, it's made out of silk.
Inky.
No,
Okay.
it just doesn't abuse.
Someone had to say it.
All right, so yes.
The real kinky variation of that is not the silk rope; it's the leather belt.
No, that's fair. Carradine that shit.
Mark's
And
never
now,
gonna
ladies
let
and
me
gentlemen,
host
the
a
plug-
show again.
Now, ladies and gentlemen,
We'd make the same joke if Mark was here and he'd agree with us.
But before that goes even more to hell than it already is, now the plug from our lovely host.
All right, so yes, Gen V will be discussed this in a week from today for TV Party Tonight. We also have Loki coming up again. I have fallen behind on that. I really need to go play catch up. We're also going to be discussing the animes of Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Looking forward to that. Scott Pilgrim is one of my favorite graphic novel series, and I absolutely love the movie. I haven't had a chance to get it on the schedule. I need to go talk with my guys, but we will be discussing the first half of season 2 of Hell of a Boss here before too long, because we agreed that we're not interested in waiting another year for them to finish the season. So we're looking forward to that. And of course, that is also we also have the big announcement that Has Been Hotel will be debuting in January. That will definitely be on our network. Now, as for the bills that actually do pay as for the plugs that actually pay my bills, God, I am tired.
Take 2. We'll edit that out.
No, we won't. Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. Now, like I said earlier, I have made tons of Five Nights at Freddy's pieces, and I love making them because I love the games, and this is one of my favorites. It's our Five Nights at Freddy's charm bracelet. See, it's got all the characters. I didn't include Mr. Cupcake specifically, but I included a cupcake. We got the screen, if you can actually see closely. Can I zoom in any? See it right there. It's like down to 4% at 5 a.m. on night 5. So good luck surviving that. It's available on our Etsy and handmade at Amazon shop. In addition, we also have a couple more Five Nights at Freddy's pieces, including our hair barrette, which features the 4 main characters, and a couple other pieces featuring characters from Security Breach. I genuinely hope that we do get Security Breach adapted for a film. If no other reason, I would love to see Sundrop and Moondrop on the big screen. I just want to see how creepy they are in a theater. That's going to be so much fun. Now, we are getting ready for our Black Friday sale. Since we're done with the convention scene, someone is barking at me to hurry this up because she wants her dinner. We will be starting our charity drive from Black Friday to Christmas Eve. Every individual order that is placed on either our Etsy or handmade at Amazon shop, we will be donating $5 to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. As always, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm not calling it X. And we are now on TikTok doing little videos. Having a lot of fun actually putting together videos from our last few conventions, putting them up there. Our most popular one actually was a gentleman cosplaying as Squidward Tentacles playing the clarinet and playing it well. Unlike Squidward, he actually knew what he was doing. So again, that's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic. And yeah, my denizens here are demanding I go feed them. So I think we're going to go ahead and call this a night. For myself,
Good.
for Mr. Price, for Mr. Winfree, be well, behave, be safe, and remember, keep those doors locked.